The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy that flows through stars, planets, and the vast emptiness between them. For 10,000 generations, the Jedi have served as guardians of this cosmic order, believing they understand the fundamental nature of reality itself. But what happens when something arrives that operates by entirely different rules, ancient technology from beyond the stars, carried by people who have never felt the Force's touch, yet command power that rivals the greatest masters? The anomaly appeared without warning in the Christophsis system, 22 years before the Battle of Yavin. No hyperspace signature preceded it. No ship registered on any scanner grid. One moment, the void between Christophsis and its smaller moon was empty. The next, space itself seemed to tear open, a wound in the fabric of reality that blazed with impossible light. What emerged defied every principle of known engineering. A city. An entire city, suspended in the black, its towers reaching upward like the fingers of some ancient god grasping for stars it could no longer touch. The central spire rose nearly a kilometer high, surrounded by 6 massive piers that extended outward in a geometric pattern that seemed both organic and impossibly precise. Every surface gleamed with a strange metallic sheen that shifted between silver and gold depending on the angle of Christophorus's distant sun. And at the heart of it all, a shield, translucent, shimmering, powerful enough that even passive scans could detect the enormous energy signature bleeding off into space. The city hung there, silent and impossible, above a world torn by war. On the bridge of the Resolute, a Venator-class star destroyer holding position in high orbit, Clone Commander Cody stared at the tactical display with the kind of stillness that came only from years of combat experience. The holographic representation of the unknown contact dominated the projection field, surrounded by question marks and error codes where the computer should have been displaying classification data. "General," Cody said carefully, not taking his eyes from the display. "Sensors are having trouble getting a clear reading. Whatever that thing is, it's interfering with our scans. Energy signature is off the charts, registering higher than a capital ship reactor core, but the emission pattern doesn't match any known power source." Jedi General Anakin Skywalker stood beside him, one hand resting on the tactical console, the other unconsciously drifting toward the lightsaber at his belt. His blue eyes narrowed as he studied the city ship, and something in the Force whispered warnings he couldn't quite interpret. Not danger, exactly. More like, absence. A blank spot in the cosmic web where something should be, but wasn't. "It's not Separatist," Anakin said finally. "I'd feel it if it was. This is something else." Something, he trailed off, frustrated by his inability to articulate the wrongness of it. "Sir, we're receiving hails from the planet's surface," a clone communications officer reported. "The Separatist commander is demanding we withdraw immediately. They're claiming the newcomer is a Republic superweapon." Anakin almost laughed. "A superweapon we didn't know we had? That's a new one, even for Separatist propaganda." He turned to Cody. "Get me a channel to General." Another clone cut in, urgency sharp in his voice. "Separatist fleet is breaking orbit. 6 Munificent-class frigates and 2 Providence-class carriers are moving to intercept the unknown contact. They're powering weapons." On the main view screen, the angular shapes of Separatist warships began their approach vector, ion drives flaring as they accelerated toward the city. Their formation was textbook, a curved envelope designed to surround and overwhelm a single target from multiple firing angles. And the city just hung there, shields shimmering, utterly still. Inside Atlantis, alarms shrieked through corridors that had been silent only moments before. Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard sprinted toward the control room, his P-90 slapping against his tactical vest with each stride. Around him, expedition members were doing the same, scientists abandoning their labs, Marines grabbing rifles, everyone converging on the heart of the city with the kind of disciplined urgency that came from years of facing the impossible. He burst through the control room entrance to find organized chaos. Dr. Rodney McKay was already at the main console, fingers flying across ancient control interfaces that glowed with soft blue light. Tayla Emagon stood at the tactical station, her normally calm expression tight with concern. Ronan Dex was checking his particle magnum, because of course he was. Report. Shepard barked, moving to the central chair, the neural interface that connected him to Atlantis herself. Oh, you know, just another Tuesday, McKay shot back, not looking up from his console. His voice had that particular tone that meant he was terrified but hiding it behind sarcasm. We jumped into what appears to be a completely different universe, our hyperdrive is fried, we have no idea where we are, and, oh yes, there are approximately 8 very large and very angry spaceships heading directly toward us with what I can only assume are hostile intentions. Sensors are detecting weapon signatures, Tayla added, her fingers dancing across the ancient interface with practiced ease. Energy weapons, projectile systems, nothing I recognize from the Wraith or Goa'uld databases, but the tactical profiles are unmistakable. They intend to attack. Shepard dropped into the control chair, feeling the familiar rush as his ancient gene activated the connection. Suddenly, Atlantis wasn't just a city around him, it was an extension of his own senses. He could feel the shields holding at 73% strength, could sense the 3,487 drones waiting in their bays, could detect the 2 ZPMs humming with power that was already depleting faster than he liked. And he could see the approaching ships in perfect detail, every weapon port, every engine signature, every vulnerable point. Those aren't Wraith, he said quietly, studying the angular vessels through Atlantis's sensors. Completely different design philosophy. Whoever built these things went for intimidation factor. Indeed, came Dr. Radek Zelenka's voice from the secondary science station. But more concerning, I am detecting unusual energy readings throughout this entire region of space. Something that does not match any known particle or wave form. It is almost as if space itself is saturated with some kind of field effect. Can we hail them? Shepard asked, though he was already running combat calculations in his head. 8 ships. Unknown weapons. Finite drone supply. They could win this fight, but every drone he used was one he'd never get back. We've been trying, Major Evan Lorne reported from the communications station. Multiple frequencies, standard mathematical progressions, even just broadcasting on all channels. Nothing. They're not responding, or they don't want to. On the sensors, the lead Separatist ship was rotating, bringing its heavy turbolaser batteries to bear. Shepard's jaw tightened. After everything they'd survived, the Wraith, the Replicators, Michael, the Azurans, they weren't going to die in some random star system because someone shot first and asked questions never. Shields to full, he ordered, his voice carrying the absolute calm of a combat veteran who'd made peace with violent necessity years ago. Charge the main weapons array. And someone get me whoever's in charge of this neighborhood, because we need to have a very serious conversation about firing on people who haven't done anything wrong. Through the control chair, he felt Atlantis respond, ancient systems coming alive, power flowing through conduits that hadn't been fully activated since their desperate flight from Pegasus. The shield brightened, a bubble of energy that could withstand the fury of stars. And in the space between one heartbeat and the next, the first turbolaser bolt struck home. If you want to see more epic crossovers and impossible encounters, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character or ship you'd want to see enter the Star Wars galaxy in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The bolt splashed harmlessly against Atlantis's shields, a cascade of red energy that dissipated like water against stone. Then another. Then a full barrage, 8 ships pouring fire into the city with enough concentrated firepower to crack a moon. The shields held. Shepard smiled, but there was no humor in it. Okay then. Let's show them what the ancients built. Through the Force, from his meditation chamber aboard the Resolute, Anakin Skywalker felt something shift, a ripple in the cosmic fabric that had nothing to do with the Force at all. And for just a moment, he wondered if the Jedi had been wrong about understanding the fundamental nature of reality. Some things, it seemed, existed beyond even the Force's reach. The Separatist bombardment intensified, turbolaser fire converging from 6 vectors simultaneously, a killing pattern that would have overwhelmed any known shielding system within seconds. Republic commanders had watched entire frigates buckle under such concentrated fire. The computational precision of droid targeting computers ensured maximum energy transfer, maximum stress on defensive systems, maximum lethality. Against Atlantis, it was like shooting at the ocean. Each turbolaser bolt struck the shield and simply stopped. The energy dissipated across the barrier's surface in rippling waves of light, absorbed and redistributed so efficiently that the shield's integrity barely fluctuated. 10,000 years of ancient engineering had created something that didn't just resist energy, it redirected it, channeled it, made it irrelevant. Shield strength holding at 71%, Taylor reported, her tone almost conversational despite the apocalyptic light show painting the control room windows. Rate of depletion is negligible. At current bombardment levels, we could maintain this for approximately 6 hours before the ZPMs require conservation protocols. McKay looked up from his console, eyebrows raised. Well, that's somewhat reassuring. Of course, we have no idea what else this galaxy might throw at us, so I'm not exactly breaking out the champagne. Shepard remained perfectly still in the control chair, his consciousness expanded throughout Atlantis's systems. Through the city's sensors, he tracked every ship, every weapon, every power signature. The attacking vessels were maintaining their envelope formation, likely expecting him to try breaking orbit, standard tactical doctrine when outnumbered and surrounded. They had no idea Atlantis didn't need to go anywhere. "Colonel, the Republic fleet is also moving," Lorne announced, studying the tactical display. 3 capital ships, they're taking up position between us and the attacking force. I think they're trying to intervene. Wonderful, Shepard muttered. So we've got one side shooting at us and another side trying to rescue us. Anyone want to place bets on which one will demand we surrender first? Through the viewports, the distinctive wedge shape of a Venator-class Star Destroyer slid into view, its white hull marked with red Republic insignia. Smaller vessels, starfighters, Shepard realized, were launching from hangar bays, dozens of them, forming defensive screens between the Republic fleet and the Separatist attackers. "We're being hailed," Lorne said. "It's coming from that big triangular ship. Audio and visual." Shepard considered for a moment. They needed information, where they were, who these people were, what kind of mess the city had dropped into. But he also needed to maintain position strength. The moment you started taking orders was the moment you lost control of the situation. "Put them through." Visual on the main screen. The holographic display shimmered, resolving into the image of a young man, couldn't be more than 25, wearing brown robes and an expression of intense curiosity barely contained beneath military discipline. Behind him stood what appeared to be a soldier in white armor, helmet under one arm, face identical to dozens of other soldiers visible in the background. Clones, some distant part of Shepard's mind registered. These people have cloning technology. McKay's going to have a field day. "This is General Anakin Skywalker of the Galactic Republic," the young man said, his voice carrying easy authority despite his age. "You've entered a contested system during an active military engagement. Identify yourself and state your intentions. We're prepared to offer assistance if you're a civilian vessel, but you need to power down those shields and allow us to bring you to safety." Shepard exchanged a glance with McKay, who mouthed the word "General," with obvious skepticism. This kid looked barely old enough to command a platoon, let alone a fleet. "This is Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard, commanding the city ship Atlantis," he replied, keeping his tone professional but non-committal. "We're not from around here, General. In fact, we're not even supposed to be in this galaxy. We'd appreciate any information you can share about our current location, but we're not powering down anything until we understand what we've walked into." Anakin's eyes narrowed slightly. "Did you just say city ship? That thing is a ship." "Among other things," Shepard said. "It's complicated. What's not complicated is that we were just fired upon without warning or provocation. So before we discuss surrender terms, which we're not interested in, by the way, how about you explain why someone decided to shoot first? Those are Separatist forces, Anakin said, as if that explained everything. When Shepard's expression remained blank, he continued. The Confederacy of Independent Systems. They're at war with the Republic. This system is contested territory. They probably assumed you were a Republic weapon or reinforcement. And are we? Shepard asked mildly. A Republic weapon? Are you? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with implications. Through the viewports, the Separatist fleet had ceased fire, their ships holding position but weapons still hot. The Republic fleet maintained their screening formation, starfighters weaving complex patrol patterns that suggested discipline and extensive training. Two sides. Two military forces. One contested system. And Atlantis sitting right in the middle with technology neither side understood. We're not anyone's weapon, Shepard said finally. We're explorers. Scientists. Military personnel protecting a civilian expedition. And right now, we're very lost and very interested in finding a way home that doesn't involve getting blown up by people who don't bother asking questions. Something flickered across Anakin's face, uncertainty, maybe, or recognition. When he spoke again, his voice had lost some of its command edge. Look, Colonel, I can't explain everything over an open channel. What I can tell you is that you've appeared in the middle of a galaxy-wide war. The Republic represents thousands of member worlds committed to democracy and peace. The Separatists want to tear that apart. And any unknown contact, especially one with the kind of power signature you're radiating, makes everyone nervous. Nervous enough to shoot on sight. The Separatists shot first, Anakin pointed out. We tried to position ourselves between you and them. That should tell you something about who's who here. McKay leaned toward Shepard, voice low. He's not wrong. The geometric faction that shot at us made no attempt at communication. These people at least tried talking first. That's something. Ronan grunted from his position near the weapons console. Still don't trust them. I don't trust anyone, Shepard replied quietly. Then, louder, to Anakin, all right, General. Here's what's going to happen. We're willing to talk, but we're doing it on our terms. You want a face-to-face meeting, we can arrange that, neutral ground, limited personnel, no weapons pointed at anyone. But Atlantis stays exactly where she is, shields up, under our control. Non-negotiable. Anakin seemed to consider this. Behind him, the clone commander leaned in, whispering something Shepard couldn't hear. The general nodded slightly, then turned back to the screen. I can work with that. There's a moon in this system, uninhabited, stable atmosphere. We could meet therein. He glanced at something off-screen. 2 hours. Small delegations. I'll bring one of our Jedi Council representatives. You should probably bring whoever's in charge of that ship of yours. Jedi. McKay interrupted, unable to contain himself. What's a Jedi? Anakin's expression suggested this was not a question he'd expected to hear from anyone over the age of 5. You don't know what a Jedi is? We don't know what anything is, Shepard said. Which is why we're having this conversation. 2 hours works for us. We'll send you coordinates for a landing site. Shepard out. He gestured, and Lorne cut the transmission. The hologram dissolved, leaving the control room in relative quiet punctuated only by the hum of ancient systems and the occasional warning chirp from sensor stations. So, McKay said into the silence. Thoughts? Observations? Someone want to explain how we jumped from fighting Wraith to being in the middle of someone else's galactic civil war? The hyperdrive malfunction, Zelenka offered, pulling up diagnostic data on his console. The Wraith superhive damaged our primary systems. When we initiated emergency jump, there must have been catastrophic failure in the dimensional stabilizers. We did not just travel through space, Colonel. We traveled through something else. Another layer of reality, perhaps. Alternate universe, Taylor said quietly. We discussed this possibility when Dr. McKay was researching alternate realities. We simply never imagined we would actually experience it. Shepard closed his eyes, feeling the weight of command settling on his shoulders like a familiar coat. The expedition had faced impossible situations before. They'd survived them by being smarter, faster, and more adaptable than whatever the universe threw at them. This was just another impossible situation. Except this time, they were completely alone. No Daedalus to provide backup. No SGC to request reinforcements. No Asgard allies to offer technological assistance. Just Atlantis, her crew, and whatever they could improvise. All right, he said, opening his eyes. Rodney, I need you to analyze every sensor reading we've got on this galaxy. Figure out where we are, what makes this place tick, and whether there's any way to reverse whatever brought us here. Zelenka, work with him. Priority 1 is understanding that weird energy field he detected. If it's interfering with our systems, I need to know how and why. On it, McKay said, already pulling up holographic displays filled with data streams that made no sense to anyone but him. Taylor, you're with me for this meeting. We need someone with diplomatic experience who can read people. Ronan, he looked at the Satadin, who was predictably glowering at the tactical display. You're on security. Pick a fire team and prep a puddle jumper. If this goes sideways, I want extraction ready. What about the other fleet? Ronan asked, jerking his chin toward the sensors showing the Separatist vessels. They're still out there. Still armed. They are maintaining position, Taylor observed, studying the tactical feed. Interesting. They stopped firing when the Republic intervened, but they have not withdrawn. They are waiting. Waiting to see what we do, Shepard said. Waiting to see if we're a threat or an opportunity. Which means we've got about 2 hours to figure out how to play this without making enemies of everyone in this galaxy. McKay snorted. No pressure then. Through the control chair, Shepard felt Atlantis around him, ancient, powerful, patient. The city had survived 10,000 years beneath an alien ocean. She'd withstood Wraith attacks, replicator assaults, and the desperate gambles of humans trying to use technology they barely understood. She would survive this too. They all would. They had to. Because out there in the black, 2 fleets watched and waited. And somewhere in this impossible galaxy, powers they couldn't yet imagine were already beginning to take notice of the city that should not exist. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant stood as it had for 1,000 years, a monument to peace, wisdom, and the eternal vigilance of those who serve the Force. In the council chamber at its highest spire, 12 seats arranged in a circle held the galaxy's most revered masters, individuals who had spent lifetimes studying the cosmic energy that bound all living things. And in this moment, every single one of them was confused. A city, Master Mace Windu said, his deep voice carrying the weight of skepticism honed over decades. Skywalker is certain of this? The holographic projection of Anakin flickered slightly, transmission lag from the Christophsis system, but his earnestness came through clearly. Yes, Master. A floating city approximately 1.2 kilometers in diameter. Ancient architecture, unknown construction materials, energy signature unlike anything in our databases. It's not Separatist technology, and it's definitely not Republic. The pilot, Shepard, claims they're from another galaxy entirely. Another galaxy, Master Yoda repeated, his ears lowering slightly as he contemplated this. Impossible, such a claim should be. Yet lies, I sense not. Disturbing, this is. Master Plo Koon leaned forward, his masked face turned toward Anakin's projection. You mentioned they were fired upon by Separatist forces. How did they respond? That's the interesting part, Anakin said, and something like excitement crept into his voice despite the formal setting. Their shields absorbed everything the Separatists threw at them, and I mean everything. 6 frigates firing simultaneously, sustained bombardment for nearly 3 minutes. Their defensive systems didn't even fluctuate. I've never seen shielding that efficient. Around the circle, several masters exchanged glances. Technology that could casually absorb capital ship weapons fire was technology that could reshape the balance of power in the Clone Wars, and everyone in the chamber knew it. Weapons, Mace Windu said. It wasn't a question. Did they display any offensive capabilities? None, Anakin admitted. They didn't fire a single shot. Just sat there with shields up, waiting. When I offered to mediate, they agreed to a meeting but refused to power down or allow boarding. They're scared, masters. Lost. But they're also not fools, they know they're sitting on something everyone's going to want. Temptation, such power represents, Yoda observed quietly. For the Jedi, for the Republic, for the Separatists. Carefully, we must proceed. Already, Count Dooku will have been informed. The ancient master was, as always, correct. Aboard the Invisible Hand, Count Dooku stood before a holographic display showing the tactical recordings from Christophsis. The elegant Sith Lord watched the footage with the kind of focused intensity that came from 70 years of studying combat, politics, and the infinite subtleties of the Force. The city's shields held against repeated bombardment without visible stress. Impressive, but not necessarily decisive, the Republic had experimental shielding that approached similar efficiency. What intrigued Dooku was something else entirely. He could not feel it in the Force. Every ship, every structure, every technological creation in the galaxy carried some trace presence, the echoes of the beings who built it, the resonance of the materials used, the shadow of purpose and function. Even droids, soulless as they were, registered as absences that confirmed their existence. This city was different. It didn't register as an absence. It simply wasn't there. As if the Force itself could not perceive it, could not touch it, could not acknowledge its reality. General Grievous, Dooku said without turning from the display. I want full tactical analysis of this encounter. Specifically, I want to know the maximum range of their sensor systems, the response time of their defensive arrays, and any weakness in their shield geometry. The cyborg general stepped forward, his mechanical voice grinding through his vocabulator. The engagement was instructive, Count. My tactical computers have identified several points of interest. The shield appears uniform, with no visible emitter arrays. This suggests either extraordinarily advanced distribution technology or a single-point generation system that we simply cannot detect. Or both, Dooku mused. What of their claims to be from another galaxy? Propaganda, most likely. Or delusion. Intergalactic travel is theoretically possible but would require power generation capabilities orders of magnitude beyond anything currently. What if it's true? Grievous' photoreceptors flickered, the closest his artificial form could come to surprise. My lord? What if they are telling the truth? Dooku turned from the display, his aristocratic features composed but his mind racing through possibilities. A civilization from beyond the galactic rim, arriving here by accident or design. Technology developed along entirely different principles. Knowledge the Republic does not possess. Power the Jedi cannot touch. He let the implications hang in the air. Grievous was many things, a monster, a weapon, a creature of hatred and pain, but he was not stupid. The general understood leverage. Such technology would be valuable, Grievous said carefully. Lord Sidious would want. Lord Sidious will want exactly what I tell him to want, Dooku interrupted, his voice carrying the absolute authority of a Sith Lord addressing a subordinate. This city represents an opportunity that transcends the Clone Wars. If we can secure their alliance, or failing that, their technology, the entire balance of power shifts. Not just in this war, but in the galaxy itself. The Republic will make the same calculations. Of course they will. Which is why we must move first. Dooku pulled up a star chart, fingers dancing across the holographic controls. Where would a lost ship go? What would they need? Supplies, Grievous suggested. Fuel, if their power systems are depleting. Information about local space. Allies, if they believe themselves threatened. Exactly. And the Republic will offer all of these things, wrapped in pretty speeches about democracy and protection. Dooku smiled thinly. We must offer something better. Something the Jedi cannot provide. What would that be, my lord? Honesty. 2 hours later, a puddle jumper descended through the thin atmosphere of Christophsis's smaller moon, its cloaking device disengaged to avoid appearing threatening. Inside, Shepard sat in the pilot's seat with the familiar comfort of ancient controls responding to his thoughts, while Tala occupied the co-pilot position and Ronan stood in the rear compartment with 3 Marines, Lieutenants Ford, Cadman, and Stackhouse, all armed but under strict orders to keep weapons lowered unless things went spectacularly wrong. Picking up a landing zone ahead, Shepard reported, bringing the jumper into a banking turn that gave them a clear view of the designated coordinates. Looks like our Republic friends are already here. Single ship, medium-sized, no visible weapons. And, are those people standing outside without pressure suits? Atmosphere is breathable, Tala confirmed, checking the jumper's environmental sensors. Thin, but within acceptable parameters. Temperature is slightly elevated but comfortable. Right, because of course the magic space wizards can just land on random moons without worrying about environmental hazards. Shepard brought the jumper down in a smooth landing about 50 meters from the Republic shuttle, close enough to walk comfortably but far enough to provide tactical spacing if necessary. Through the forward viewport, he could see 4 figures waiting, the young general from the holographic transmission, the clone commander, and 2 others. One was a man in similar brown robes to the general, older, with a neat beard and an expression of serene composure that immediately reminded Shepard of every diplomat who'd ever tried to manipulate him. The other was a woman with striking blue skin, red eyes, and elaborate headtails that marked her as decidedly non-human. Well, Shepard said, unstrapping from his seat. At least they're not pointing guns at us. That's progress. Yet, Ronan rumbled, checking his particle magnum one final time. Optimism, Ronan. It's good for you. The jumper's rear hatch cycled open, and Shepard stepped out into the pale orange light of Christophsis's sun filtering through the moon's thin atmosphere. The ground was rocky, dusty, and utterly barren, no vegetation, no water, nothing but stone and silence. Perfect neutral ground, in other words. The 4 Republic representatives approached, and Shepard found himself studying them with the tactical assessment reflex that every combat veteran developed. The young general moved with loose-jointed confidence, one hand resting near a cylindrical object on his belt. The older man walked like someone who'd spent a lifetime in low-gravity environments, smooth, economical movements that wasted no energy. The clone commander had the rigid posture of military discipline, while the blue-skinned woman moved with a fluid grace that suggested either dance training or combat expertise. Or both. Colonel Shepard, the young general said, extending his hand in a gesture that translated across universes. Anakin Skywalker. This is my former master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the bearded man nodded, Commander Cody, and Jedi Knight Aayla Secura. Shepard shook hands, noting the calluses on Anakin's palm. Fighter pilot, maybe, or someone who worked with his hands. This is Tala Emigon, my second-in-command and chief diplomat. Ronan Dex, security. The 3 trying to look inconspicuous by the jumper are my Marines. Jumper? Obi-Wan asked, his accent cultured and precisely articulated. Is that what you call your vessel? Puddle jumper, technically. Long story. Shepard gestured to a cluster of rocks that would serve as makeshift seating. Should we get down to business? I'm guessing you've got questions. We've definitely got questions. They arranged themselves in a rough circle, not quite adversarial, not quite friendly. Shepard noticed that both Anakin and Obi-Wan positioned themselves where they could react quickly to threats from multiple directions. Combat veterans, definitely. Perhaps we should start with basics, Obi-Wan suggested, his voice carrying the measured cadence of someone accustomed to negotiation. You claim to be from another galaxy. I confess that seems unlikely. Intergalactic travel would require technology far beyond anything the Republic has achieved. And yet here we are, Shepard replied. We didn't plan this. Our hyperdrive malfunctioned during an emergency jump. 1 second we were in the Pegasus Galaxy, the next we were here. Wherever here is. The Pegasus Galaxy. Ayla Secura spoke for the first time, her voice melodic but puzzled. I've never heard of such a place. You wouldn't have, McKay's voice crackled through Shepard's radio earpiece. They literally cannot have heard of it, because it's not in this reality. John, tell them. No, wait, let me tell them. Put me on speaker. Shepard tapped his radio. Go ahead, Rodney. You're on. Right, hello, unknown people from unknown galaxy. McKay's enthusiasm bled through the transmission. Dr. Rodney McKay here, chief scientist for the Atlantis expedition. I've been analyzing the sensor data we collected since arriving in your universe, and yes, I said universe, not galaxy, and I've confirmed what we suspected. The quantum signature of local spacetime doesn't match our home reality. You're not just in a different galaxy, gentleman and lady. You're in a completely different dimensional plane of existence. Parallel universe, alternate reality, whatever terminology you prefer. We're literally from a different version of the cosmos. Silence greeted this announcement. Shepard watched the Jedi carefully, trying to gauge their reactions. Anakin looked skeptical. Obi-Wan looked thoughtful. Ayla looked concerned. Commander Cody looked like he was calculating tactical implications. Alternate realities, Obi-Wan said finally, are theoretically possible in certain Force philosophies. The ancient Jedi theorized about parallel streams of existence, paths not taken, choices that created divergent timelines. But that was considered philosophy, not physics. Well, congratulations, Shepard said dryly. Your philosophers were right. Though I'm more concerned with the practical implications, namely, how do we get home? Before we discuss that, Anakin interjected, leaning forward slightly, we need to talk about what happens while you're here. You've got a city ship with defensive capabilities that make our best shielding look like tissue paper. The Separatists know about you. The Republic knows about you. And trust me when I say that knowledge is going to spread fast. Everyone's going to want to know what else you're carrying. We're not a weapons platform, Taylor said firmly. Atlantis is a city first, a research station second, and only a warship when necessity demands. We have no interest in your war. Whether you have interest or not, Obi-Wan replied gently, the war has interest in you. The Separatists will attempt to either seize your technology or destroy it to prevent the Republic from obtaining it. The Republic, he paused, choosing words carefully. Will want to ensure such power doesn't fall into enemy hands. You're caught in the middle, whether you wish to be or not. Shepard had expected this. It was the same calculation they'd faced in Pegasus. Powerful outsiders with advanced technology always became targets, either for alliance or destruction. The key was maintaining enough leverage to dictate terms while not appearing so threatening that someone decided preemptive elimination was the safer option. Then I guess, Shepard said slowly, we need to establish some ground rules. First, Atlantis remains independent and autonomous. We don't take orders from anyone. Second, we're willing to share information about ourselves in exchange for information about this galaxy. Third, we're not giving anyone our technology, but we're not opposed to cooperation on mutually beneficial terms. And fourth, he looked directly at Anakin. If anyone tries to take what we're not offering, they're going to discover that our defensive systems are the least impressive thing the ancients built. Anakin's hand drifted toward his lightsaber almost unconsciously. Is that a threat, Colonel? It's a promise, General. We've survived worse than a galactic civil war. We didn't do it by being pushovers. The tension stretched between them, neither quite hostile but far from comfortable. Then Obi-Wan laughed, a genuine sound of amusement that broke the moment. I think, he said, stroking his beard, that you and Anakin are going to get along famously or kill each other. Possibly both. He stood, brushing dust from his robes. Very well, Colonel. Your terms are noted. I'll present them to the Jedi Council. But I should warn you, the Council will want to meet you in person. They'll want to understand what you are, how you arrived here, and what threat or opportunity you represent. We'll consider it, Shepard replied, also standing. But any meeting happens on our terms, at a location of our choosing, with security we control. Non-negotiable. You don't trust easily, do you? Ayla observed. Tayla smiled, but there was steel beneath it. We have learned, through considerable hardship, that trust must be earned. Particularly from those who possess significant military power and speak of offering protection. Obi-Wan nodded slowly. A wise philosophy. Very well, we'll recommend to the Council that they accept your conditions. Though I should mention that not everyone in the Republic will be as accommodating. There are elements within the Senate, within the military, who will see your presence as either salvation or threat. We cannot control all actors. We never expected you could, Shepard said. But we can control ourselves. And right now, what we control is whether this galaxy gets access to 10,000 years of ancient knowledge, or whether Atlantis remains a locked vault that nobody gets to open. As they walked back toward their respective ships, Anakin fell into step beside Shepard. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone more diplomatic. You're pretty direct for someone trying to avoid making enemies. Shepard smiled. General, where we come from, being direct is diplomatic. Means everyone knows where they stand. No surprises, no hidden agendas. You tell me what you want, I tell you what I'm willing to give, and we figure out if there's common ground. Seems to work better than smiling and lying. The Jedi would say there's wisdom in patience and indirect approach. Yeah, well, we had a saying in the Air Force, lead, follow, or get out of the way. So far, your Jedi have done none of those things. They're still trying to figure out if we're dangerous. Anakin grinned. Are you? Extremely. But only to people who threaten us first. They reached the puddle jumper, where Ronan was watching the exchange with obvious suspicion. Anakin nodded to him, then turned back to Shepard. For what it's worth, Colonel, I believe you. About being lost, about wanting to find your way home. The Force is quiet around you. Around your city. It's like you don't exist in it. That's not natural, but it doesn't feel malicious either. Just different. The Force, Shepard repeated. McKay mentioned you people kept talking about that. What is it, exactly? Anakin's expression shifted, surprise mixed with something like wonder. You really don't know? The Force is everything. The energy between all living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, binds the galaxy together. Jedi can sense it, manipulate it, use it to do things that seem impossible. Like magic. Like connection to the fundamental fabric of reality. Anakin paused. You can't feel it at all. Not even a little bit. Should I? Everyone should. Everything living exists within the Force. But you, Anakin trailed off, studying Shepard with new intensity. You're like a blank space. And so is everyone else from your city. That's going to make a lot of Jedi very nervous. Great, Shepard muttered. As if we didn't have enough problems. He climbed into the jumper, Tayla and Ronan following. As the hatch sealed and the ship lifted off, returning to Atlantis's protective embrace, Shepard couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just stepped into something far more complex than a simple civil war. Below on the moon's surface, Obi-Wan watched the strange vessel disappear into the sky. What do you think? Anakin asked. I think, Obi-Wan said slowly, that the Force has brought us something unprecedented. And I'm not entirely certain whether it's a gift or a test. Can't it be both? With the Force, my dear friend, it usually is. The Atlantis control room hummed with activity as McKay paced back and forth in front of a dozen holographic displays, each one showing incomprehensible data streams that he seemed to absorb through pure intellectual osmosis. Zelenka sat at a nearby console, occasionally interjecting observations in his Czech-accented English while rapidly typing commands that made the ancient system sing. It's not just different, McKay was saying, gesturing emphatically at a particularly complex quantum field analysis. It's fundamentally, philosophically, cosmologically different. Look at this, he pulled up a three-dimensional representation of local spacetime. In our universe, quantum mechanics operates on probabilistic wave functions that collapse upon observation. Standard physics. Here. There's an additional variable permeating everything. A field effect that doesn't correspond to any known force, electromagnetic, gravitational, strong nuclear, weak nuclear, it's something else entirely. Shepard stood near the control chair, arms crossed, trying to follow along. In English, Rodney. This galaxy is haunted. McKay exclaimed, then immediately backtracked. No, not haunted, that's imprecise. It's saturated. There's an energy field threading through every atom, every quantum state, every possible interaction. It's like someone took normal physics and added an entirely new fundamental force that influences everything from particle decay to neurological processes. The Force, Tayla said quietly. She'd been reviewing the recordings from their meeting, paying particular attention to how the Jedi moved and spoke. General Skywalker described it as binding all living things together. An energy that surrounds and penetrates everything. Yes, exactly. Except it's not metaphorical, it's literal. There is an actual, measurable energy field affecting quantum interactions at every scale. And here's the really disturbing part, McKay pulled up another display showing Atlantis's power systems. Our technology is interfering with it. Or rather, it's not interfering enough. Ancient systems operate on principles that don't account for this field's existence. We're like oil in water. We don't mix. We're fundamentally incompatible with the underlying physics of this reality. Shepard felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. How incompatible are we talking? Are we going to start breaking down? No, nothing that dramatic. Ancient technology is robust enough to function despite the incompatibility. But, Zelenka pulled up sensor logs from the Separatist attack. There are inefficiencies. Small ones, but measurable. Our sensors have reduced range. Our shields consume approximately 3% more power than they should. The hyperdrive is completely non-functional because it cannot properly interface with this universe's dimensional topology. So we're stuck here, Ronan said flatly from where he stood near the weapons console. Stuck is such a permanent word, McKay hedged. I prefer to think of it as temporarily displaced pending comprehensive understanding of transdimensional mechanics and the development of appropriate technological countermeasures that might, possibly, allow us to reverse the process that brought us here in the first place. Stuck, Ronan repeated. For now, McKay admitted, deflating slightly. Yes. For now, we're stuck. The control room fell silent except for the omnipresent hum of ancient systems. Shepard looked around at his people, scientists who'd signed up to explore another galaxy, not get trapped in an alternate universe. Military personnel who'd expected combat, sure, but against enemies they understood. Support staff who just wanted to do their jobs and maybe not die horribly in the process. They were all looking at him, waiting for him to say something that would make this better. He had nothing. All right, he said finally, moving to the central chair and lowering himself into it. The neural connection activated immediately, spreading his awareness throughout Atlantis's systems. We've been in bad situations before. We adapted. That's what we do, we survive, we adapt, and we figure out how to win. So here's what's going to happen. Rodney, you and Zelenka keep analyzing this force phenomenon. I want to know everything, how it works, how it might affect us, whether we can interact with it, and most importantly, whether understanding it helps us get home. Already on it, McKay confirmed. Taylor, work with our anthropology and linguistics people. These Jedi, their Republic, the Separatists, I want comprehensive cultural profiles. How they think, what they value, where their pressure points are. If we're going to navigate this galaxy's politics, we need to understand the players. Understood, Taylor replied, already making notes on a data pad. Ronan, coordinate with Major Lorne. I want security protocols updated for this environment. Different technology, different threats, different tactical considerations. And talk to Beckett, we need to understand the medical implications of this place. If there's some kind of energy field affecting biology, I want to know if it's going to hurt us. Ronan nodded, hand already moving toward his radio to contact Lorne. What about the Jedi Council? Lieutenant Banks asked from the communications station. They're going to expect an answer about meeting with them. Shepard considered. The smart play was to delay, gather more information, maintain distance until they understood what they were dealing with. But delay could also be interpreted as weakness or hostility. And if what Anakin had said was true, that the Jedi were some kind of mystical peacekeeping force, then having them as enemies would make an already bad situation catastrophic. Tell them we're willing to meet, he decided. But not on Coruscant, wherever that is. Neutral territory, limited delegation, and we bring our own security. Same terms as before. If they don't like it, they can. Colonel. One of the sensor technicians, Lieutenant Morrison, sat bolt upright at her station, hands flying across ancient controls. We've got multiple hyperspace signatures inbound. Large ones. I'm reading, 5 capital ship-sized contacts emerging from FTL approximately 300,000 kilometers from our position. Shepard's awareness expanded through the chair, the city's sensors becoming his own senses. He felt the ripples in spacetime as massive vessels tore back into normal space, energy signatures blazing across every frequency. The ships were different from the Republic and Separatist vessels they'd encountered, sleeker, more elegant, with power outputs that suggested serious military capability. Configuration matches the Separatist fleet we encountered earlier, Morrison reported, voice tight with tension. But these are different ship classes. I'm seeing what looks like a command carrier, heavy cruiser configuration, and 4 escort frigates. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Put it through, Shepard ordered. The holographic display shimmered, resolving into the image of a man who could have been royalty in any civilization. He wore clothes that suggested wealth and taste, dark, elegant, perfectly tailored. His hair was silver, swept back from a face that combined aristocratic refinement with the kind of strength that came from genuine power, not just inherited privilege. But it was his eyes that caught Shepard's attention, intelligent, calculating, and utterly confident. Greetings, the man said, his voice cultured and precise. I am Count Dooku of Sereno, representative of the Confederacy of Independent Systems. You must be Colonel Shepard, commander of the vessel known as Atlantis. I apologize for the unfortunate incident earlier, General Grievous' forces can be somewhat overeager. I hope you'll allow me to offer proper introductions and perhaps begin a more civilized dialogue than weapons fire. Every instinct Shepard had developed over years of command screamed warnings. This man was dangerous, not in the obvious way of Ronan's straightforward violence or the Wraith's predatory hunger, but in the subtle way of politicians who smiled while planning your destruction. Count Dooku, Shepard replied, keeping his voice neutral. That's an interesting way to apologize for shooting at us. Usually people lead with sorry before showing up with a battle group. Dooku smiled, and it actually seemed genuine. A fair point, Colonel. Allow me to be direct, then, something I suspect you'll appreciate more than diplomatic platitudes. The Confederacy of Independent Systems has no desire for hostilities with your people. Our forces fired upon you because they believed you to be a Republic superweapon. A reasonable assumption, given your sudden appearance and extraordinary capabilities. Now that we know better, I'd like to extend an invitation for dialogue. Peaceful, productive dialogue. We already met with Republic representatives, Shepard said carefully. They made similar offers. I'm certain they did. The Republic excels at offers, democracy, protection, membership in their bloated bureaucracy. What they don't mention is that membership means surrendering your autonomy to a Senate controlled by corporate interests and a Chancellor who accumulates emergency powers like some collect art. Dooku's expression shifted, becoming almost sympathetic. You're lost, Colonel. Far from home, with finite resources and no clear path back. The Republic will promise to help you while their scientists dissect your technology. The Jedi will speak of the Force and destiny while maneuvering you into serving their agenda. I'm offering something different. Which is truth. And a genuine alliance between equals, not a master and subordinate relationship. Dooku gestured, and a star chart appeared beside his hologram, a three-dimensional map showing thousands of star systems. The Confederacy represents over 10,000 systems that chose independence over Republic control. We believe in self-determination, in the right of sovereign worlds to chart their own course. Your situation, arriving in our galaxy by accident, seeking a way home, that's exactly the kind of challenge we respect. We don't want to own you, Colonel. We want to trade with you. Information for information. Resources for resources. Two independent powers negotiating as equals. McKay leaned close to Shepard, voice barely above a whisper. He's good. Really good. Classic manipulation, acknowledge our concerns, position himself as the reasonable alternative, appeal to our desire for autonomy. Textbook. I know, Shepard murmured back. Then, louder, to Dooku, that's a compelling pitch, Count. But I notice you're making it with 5 warships backing you up. Doesn't exactly scream peaceful dialogue. Would you have answered a transmission from an unarmed shuttle? Dooku countered. After being fired upon by Separatist forces, then intercepted by Republic forces? I thought not. The ships are here because this is a war zone, Colonel. Not because I intend to threaten you. Consider them a gesture of respect. I'm treating you as a power capable of defending itself, not a victim requiring protection. There was a certain logic to that, Shepard had to admit. And something about Dooku's approach was indeed more honest than Anakin's careful diplomatic positioning. The young Jedi had been friendly, sure, but there'd been an undercurrent of assessment, figuring out whether Atlantis was a threat that needed containment or an asset that could be exploited. Dooku was at least being upfront about wanting something. What exactly are you proposing? Shepard asked. A meeting. Face to face, just as you did with young Skywalker. I can offer you intelligence about this galaxy that the Republic would never share, the true nature of the Clone Wars, the factions and powers at play, the resources you'll need to survive here while searching for a way home. In exchange, I ask only that you listen with an open mind to what the Confederacy offers before committing to any alliance. And if we decide not to ally with anyone? Then you remain neutral, and we respect that neutrality. Dooku's smile returned. Unlike the Republic, which will eventually insist that those who are not with us are against us. The Jedi speak of balance, but their actions suggest they only accept one path, their own. Shepard muted the transmission and turned to his senior staff. Thoughts? And be quick. We can't leave him hanging too long. He is manipulative, Tala said immediately. But his core argument has merit. The Republic and these Jedi have been positioning themselves as our only option. Hearing the other side would provide necessary context. It's a trap, Ronan growled. Has to be. Nobody shows up with warships offering friendship. Actually, McKay interjected, tactically, it makes sense. If he wanted to attack us, he'd have done it already. 5 ships isn't enough to overwhelm our defenses, and he knows it. This is reconnaissance, he's trying to get close enough to really assess what we're capable of. But that cuts both ways. We could learn just as much about them. Zelenka nodded agreement. And we do need information about this galaxy. Multiple perspectives would help us understand the political landscape more accurately than accepting only the Republic's narrative. Shepard unmuted the channel. Alright, Count. Same terms as before, neutral location, limited delegations, no funny business. You pick the place, we'll bring our own transportation and security. When and where? There's an abandoned trading station in the Renvar system, Dooku said immediately, as if he'd been expecting the question. Far from any active combat zones, long since derelict. Perfect neutral ground. I can be there in 6 hours. Will that suffice? Make it 8. We need time to prepare. Of course. I look forward to our conversation, Colonel. I believe you'll find the Confederacy far more accommodating than the Republic has been. Dooku inclined his head slightly, a gesture of respect between equals. Until then. The transmission ended, leaving the control room in tense silence. Well, McKay said finally. That was ominous. Everything about this place is ominous, Shepard replied, standing from the control chair. Tayla, you're with me again. Ronan, same security protocols as last time. Rodney, I want every sensor we have trained on that station before we arrive. If this is a trap, I want to know it before we're in it. On it, McKay confirmed, already pulling up scan parameters. Shepard moved to the control room's main viewport, staring out at the alien stars of this impossible galaxy. Two factions, both claiming to want peace while preparing for war. Both offering alliance while maneuvering for advantage. Both presenting themselves as the reasonable choice while painting the other as dangerous extremists. It was like every political conflict he'd ever studied, compressed and amplified to galactic scale. And somewhere in the middle of it all, a lost city full of people who just wanted to go home. Sir. Lieutenant Cadman approached, her expression concerned. Are we really going to negotiate with both sides? Doesn't that make us look? I don't know, opportunistic. No, Shepard said quietly. It makes us look smart. Because the one thing I learned in Iraq and Afghanistan is that when two sides are fighting, the truth usually lives somewhere in the middle. The Republic thinks they're the good guys. The Separatists think they're freedom fighters. And I'm betting both of them are at least partially right and definitely partially wrong. So what do? We listen to everyone. We trust no one. And we make our own decisions based on our own interests, which right now means surviving long enough to figure out how to get back to Pegasus. He turned to face her directly. Because make no mistake, Lieutenant. We're not staying here. This isn't our war, this isn't our galaxy, and these aren't our people. We're going home. Even if these people need our help. Even if. Shepard's voice was harder than he intended, but the point needed to be made. We've got 300 people depending on us making the right call. I won't sacrifice them for strangers, no matter how good the cause looks. We help where we can without compromising ourselves. But we don't get drawn into someone else's war. Cadman nodded slowly, though something in her expression suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. Yes, sir. As she walked away, Tayla moved to stand beside Shepard. You do not believe we can remain neutral? No, he admitted. I don't. These people won't let us. Sooner or later, they'll force us to choose, whether we want to or not. But I'm going to delay that choice as long as possible, because once we pick a side, we're committed. And I need to be damn sure we're committing to the right one. What if there is no right side? Then we make our own. Through the viewport, the stars burned with cold, indifferent light, the same stars that had watched civilizations rise and fall for billions of years. Somewhere out there, the Republic and Confederacy were tearing the galaxy apart in the name of their competing visions of order and freedom. And into that maelstrom, impossibly, had fallen a city of ancients and the people who carried their legacy. Shepard only hoped they were ready for what came next. The Renvar system hung on the edge of civilized space, a frozen world orbiting a dying star, surrounded by asteroid fields and the debris of ancient battles. The trading station Dooku had specified was a relic from the Old Republic era, a massive ring-shaped structure that had once facilitated commerce between the core and outer rim. Now it drifted in silent orbit, its lights long extinguished, its corridors empty of everything except ghosts and vacuum. Perfect neutral ground, as promised. Or perfect ambush site, depending on your perspective. The puddle jumper approached cautiously, its ancient sensors sweeping the station and surrounding space with meticulous precision. Shepard piloted with one hand while monitoring the tactical display with the neural interface provided by his ATA gene, his awareness extending through the small craft systems like an extra sense. Picking up one ship docked at the station's primary bay, he reported. Medium cruiser, matches the configuration from Dooku's fleet. No other contacts within sensor range. Either he's playing this straight, or any ambush is cloaked beyond our ability to detect. Comforting thought, McKay muttered from the co-pilot seat. He'd insisted on coming along this time, arguing that understanding Separatist technology was critical to their broader analysis of this galaxy's physics. Shepard suspected he was mostly coming because sitting in Atlantis driving himself crazy with unsolvable equations was making him insufferable even by his own standards. Tayla sat behind them, reviewing data on a tablet. I have been studying what little information we could gather about Count Dooku. He was once a Jedi Master, one of the most respected members of their order. He left 2 decades ago over philosophical disagreements with the Council, then emerged as the political leader of the Separatist movement. The Republic considers him a traitor. The Separatists view him as a visionary. Former space wizard turned revolutionary, Shepard summarized. Great. Those always work out well. Ronan checked his particle magnum for the 3rd time, his expression suggesting he expected combat regardless of Dooku's assurances. Behind him, Lieutenants Cadman and Stackhouse performed similar equipment checks, while Dr. Beckett occupied the last seat looking distinctly uncomfortable in body armor. Remind me why I'm here again, the Scottish doctor asked plaintively. Because if anyone gets hurt, I want our chief medical officer on site, Shepard replied. Also because if Dooku tries anything medical related, bioweapons, sedatives, whatever, you'll spot it faster than the rest of us. Wonderful. Nothing makes a man feel valued like being biological threat detection. The jumper slipped through the station's atmospheric shield, still functioning after centuries, a testament to Old Republic engineering, and settled onto the docking platform with barely a whisper of repulsor engines. Through the viewport, Shepard could see the Separatist cruiser, elegant and predatory, its hull painted in colors that suggested corporate sophistication rather than military aggression. And standing on the platform, alone except for 2 figures in dark armor, was Count Dooku. He actually came by himself, McKay said, surprise evident in his voice. I mean, relatively speaking. That's either confidence or stupidity. Or bait, Ronan added darkly. Only one way to find out. Shepard stood, checking his P-91 final time. Remember, we're here to listen and learn, not commit to anything. Be polite, be professional, but be ready to shoot if necessary. The Shepard Doctrine, Cadman quipped. Diplomacy through superior firepower. It's worked so far. The jumper's hatch opened, and they stepped out into the station's artificial atmosphere. The air was stale but breathable, recycled through systems that had somehow survived centuries of neglect. Overhead, the station's transparent dome showed the stars beyond, cold, distant, uncaring. Dooku approached with measured steps, his bearing suggesting aristocratic refinement rather than military precision. Up close, he was taller than Shepard had expected, and his presence carried a weight that had nothing to do with physical size. The 2 armored figures flanking him wore equipment that looked advanced, full environmental seals, integrated weapons systems, sophisticated helmet displays. But it was Dooku himself who commanded attention. Colonel Shepard, the Count said, inclining his head in greeting. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I recognize this requires considerable trust on your part. Not trust, Shepard corrected. Calculated risk. There's a difference. Dooku smiled, genuine amusement. Quite right. I appreciate precision in language. Allow me to introduce my companions. These are Magna Guards, specialized security units. They will remain at a distance unless circumstances require otherwise. He gestured toward a section of the platform where someone had arranged a table and chairs, simple, functional, non-threatening. Shall we? They moved to the improvised meeting area, everyone acutely aware of everyone else's positioning. Shepard noted that Dooku moved like someone with extensive combat training, balanced, centered, every motion economical. The Magna Guard stood at precisely calculated intervals, their stance suggesting they could intercept threats from multiple angles. Professional. Prepared. Dangerous. Let me be direct, Dooku began once they were seated. I requested this meeting because I believe the Republic representatives you encountered gave you a fundamentally incomplete picture of the current situation. They would have presented themselves as defenders of democracy, peacekeepers trying to preserve galactic order. Technically accurate, but profoundly misleading. And you're going to give us the complete picture? Shepard asked skeptically. I'm going to give you a different perspective. Whether it's complete, Dooku spread his hands. That's for you to judge. Tell me, Colonel, what did the Jedi tell you about the Clone Wars? About why we're fighting? Tala answered. They mentioned the Confederacy of Independent Systems seeking to separate from the Republic. That your forces represent systems that wish independence. Accurate as far as it goes. But consider the deeper context. Dooku pulled out a holographic projector, similar technology to what the Republic used, Shepard noted, and activated a display showing the galaxy. The Galactic Republic has stood for over 1,000 years. For most of that time, it functioned reasonably well. But in the last century, something changed. Corporate interests, the Trade Federation, the banking clan, the Techno-Union, began wielding disproportionate influence in the Senate. Laws were passed favoring core worlds at the expense of the Outer Rim. Taxation increased while representation decreased. Entire regions were exploited for resources while receiving nothing in return. The hologram zoomed in, highlighting specific systems. My own world, Sereno, is an example. We paid enormous taxes to Coruscant, yet when pirates attacked our shipping lanes, Republic forces took months to respond. When we tried to establish local defense forces, we were accused of militarism. When we protested in the Senate, we were ignored. And we were far from alone. McKay leaned forward, studying the display with scientific interest. So the Confederacy is, what, a tax revolt that escalated? A gross oversimplification, but not entirely inaccurate. The Confederacy began as a political movement, systems demanding reform, greater autonomy, respect for local governance. The Republic's response was to send Jedi negotiators who lectured us about patience and unity while doing nothing to address our grievances. When diplomacy failed, some systems declared independence. The Republic declared us traitors and created a clone army to force us back into compliance. Wait, Shepard interrupted. Clone army? You're telling me the Republic is using clones as soldiers? 3 million of them, created in secret on Kamino, ordered by a Jedi Master who conveniently died before anyone could ask questions about authorization or oversight. Dooku's expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes were sharp. The Republic claims they're volunteers. Volunteers who were grown in tubes, programmed for combat, and deployed without consent or choice. The Jedi command them without apparent moral qualms, despite their philosophy supposedly valuing all life. Beckett looked genuinely disturbed. That's slavery. Creating sentient beings for the sole purpose of warfare. The Jedi prefer the term necessary evil, Dooku said dryly. Much as they prefer to call our legitimate quest for self-determination rebellion rather than independence. Language matters, Doctor. It shapes perception. The Republic has been very careful about controlling the narrative. Shepard exchanged glances with Teyla. The clones they'd met, Commander Cody and his brothers, had seemed like professionals, disciplined soldiers serving willingly. But if what Dooku was saying was true, they'd been created for war, never given a choice about their purpose or fate. That was deeply troubling. "You're making the Republic sound like the bad guys," Shepard said carefully. "But you showed up with warships and shot at us first. That doesn't exactly scream peaceful independence movement." Fair criticism. The Confederacy includes disparate factions with varying motivations. Some, like myself, seek genuine independence and reformed governance. Others, the Trade Federation, for instance, are primarily motivated by profit and see the war as opportunity. Still others harbor genuine grudges against the Republic and want revenge as much as freedom. I don't claim moral purity for our cause, Colonel. War is never clean, and revolutions attract both idealists and opportunists. Dooku stood, moving to the platform's edge where the view opened onto the frozen world below. But consider this, we're asking only to be left alone. To govern ourselves according to our own values and needs. The Republic is the aggressor here, they're the ones deploying armies to force sovereign systems back under their control. They're the ones using genetically engineered slaves as soldiers. They're the ones led by a chancellor who keeps discovering new, emergency powers that somehow never get relinquished once the emergency passes. Chancellor Palpatine, Teyla said, consulting her notes. The Jedi seem to trust him. The Jedi trust many things they shouldn't. They're powerful, Colonel, make no mistake. But power without wisdom is dangerous. The Jedi believe so deeply in their own righteousness that they can't see how they're being manipulated. Dooku turned back to face them. Which brings me to my primary reason for requesting this meeting. Information you need, whether you ally with us or not. I'm listening, Shepard said. The Clone Wars are not what they appear to be. This conflict serves purposes beyond the stated goals of either side. Someone is orchestrating events, manipulating both Republic and Confederacy toward some larger objective. I don't know who, and I don't know their endgame. But I know the Jedi are blind to it, and I know the Republic is being guided toward something dark. McKay snorted. That's conveniently vague. Someone is doing something for mysterious reasons. Come on. I agree it sounds paranoid, Dooku admitted. But consider the facts. A clone army ordered years before anyone knew we'd need one. A war that broke out almost perfectly timed for that army's deployment. Battle droids that are effective enough to be threatening but never quite effective enough to win decisively. Jedi being thrust into military command roles they're philosophically opposed to, yet accepting without significant resistance. And at the center of it all, a chancellor accumulating power at a rate that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. You think someone's playing both sides, Shepard said slowly, pieces clicking together. Keeping the war going for their own purposes. I think the Clone Wars serve someone's interests far more than they serve the galaxy's. And I think your arrival, your technology, your power, your independence from both factions, represents a variable that wasn't accounted for. You could change the equation, Colonel. Which means both sides will try to control you, and whoever is orchestrating this larger game will take notice. Silence fell over the platform. Shepard studied Dooku carefully, looking for tells, for signs of deception. The man was good, controlled, articulate, convincing. But everyone he'd met in this galaxy had been convincing. Anakin with his earnest heroism. Obi-Wan with his diplomatic wisdom. Now Dooku with his revolutionary truth-telling. They couldn't all be right. Why tell us this? Teyla asked. If what you say is true, revealing it to outsiders only complicates your position. Because you're outsiders, Dooku replied simply. You have no stake in our conflict, no preconceptions about who deserves to win. You can see clearly what those of us inside the situation cannot. And because, he paused, choosing words carefully. Because I suspect you've encountered manipulation before. Your caution, your insistence on independence, your refusal to accept simple narratives. These suggest experience with those who smile while sharpening knives. Ronan grunted. Wraith. Gold. Azurans. Replicators. Michael. Yeah, we've met liars before. Then you understand. Trust is earned through actions, not words. So let me offer proof of good faith. Dooku pulled out a data chip, placing it on the table. Intelligence on Republic fleet movements, Senate deliberations, and Jedi Council discussions. Information you can verify independently. Use it to inform your decisions. All I ask is that you don't commit to the Republic before understanding what you're truly joining. Shepard didn't reach for the chip immediately. And in exchange? Nothing. Not yet. If you decide the Confederacy represents the better path forward, we can discuss terms of alliance, mutually beneficial, respectful of your autonomy. If you decide to remain neutral, we respect that choice. If you choose the Republic, Dooku smiled thinly. Well, then we know where we stand. That's it. Free intelligence with no strings attached. Consider it an investment. I believe that once you truly understand this galaxy's situation, you'll recognize that the Confederacy's cause aligns more closely with your own values than the Republic's pretty lies. But I'm patient. Truth has a way of revealing itself. McKay leaned toward Shepard, whispering urgently. This feels like a trap. Nobody gives away valuable intelligence for free. Unless they're confident you'll make the choice they want once you have all the facts, Taylor countered quietly. Or unless the intelligence itself is designed to manipulate. Shepard made a decision. He reached out and took the chip, slipping it into his vest pocket. We'll review this. Verify what we can. But understand, we're not making any commitments based on one meeting and a data chip. We'll make our own assessment based on evidence, not promises. All I can ask for. Dooku stood, signaling the meeting's conclusion. One final piece of advice, Colonel. The Jedi will speak to you of the Force, of destiny, of the will of the cosmos. They'll suggest that your arrival here has meaning, purpose, significance beyond mere accident. They may even try to recruit you to their philosophy. And be wary of anyone who claims to know the will of the universe. The Force is real, I know this from personal experience. But those who claim to speak for it are often simply projecting their own desires onto cosmic coincidence. Dooku's expression became distant, almost melancholy. I was a Jedi for decades, Colonel. I believed in their teachings, their vision, their certainty about right and wrong. It took me years to realize that certainty is the most dangerous quality a person can possess. The moment you believe you cannot be wrong is the moment you become capable of any atrocity in service of righteous goals. Speaking from experience? Shepard asked. Always. Dooku extended his hand. Whatever you decide, Colonel, I hope you'll remember this conversation. Power without wisdom is tyranny. Wisdom without question is dogma. And dogma, in my experience, kills more people than any weapon. Shepard shook his hand, noting the strength in Dooku's grip. We'll be in touch. I look forward to it. The puddle jumper lifted off minutes later, cloaking device activated as soon as they cleared the station's shield perimeter. Inside, the team sat in tense silence, each processing what they'd heard. So, Cadman said finally. That was intense. Are we believing him? Part of him, Taylor said thoughtfully. His critique of the Republic has internal consistency. The existence of a clone army created in secret is verifiable fact that raises significant moral questions. His characterization of the Confederacy as pure freedom fighters is almost certainly propaganda. But his warning about manipulation, Beckett added. That rang true, didn't it? Someone orchestrating both sides toward unknown goals. It's classic conspiracy, but we've seen it before. The Goa'uld played rival Jaffa factions against each other for millennia. McKay was studying a tablet, preliminary analysis of the data chip already in progress. The intelligence appears genuine, at least the portions I can verify against our own sensor logs. Republic fleet positions match what we observed. Senate voting records are internally consistent. This isn't fabricated data. Doesn't mean it's complete data, Shepard cautioned. Classic disinformation technique, give them 90% truth so they believe the 10% that serves your agenda. So what do we do? Stackhouse asked. Shepard gazed out at the stars, his mind working through the tactical and political implications. Two sides, both convinced of their righteousness. Both willing to use him and Atlantis as pieces on their galactic chessboard. Both hiding something. The smart play was to maintain distance, gather intelligence, avoid commitment until they had a clearer picture. But the galaxy wouldn't let them sit on the sidelines forever. Eventually, circumstances would force a choice. He needed to be ready when that moment came. We do what we always do, he said finally. We verify everything independently. We trust our own judgment over anyone else's propaganda. And we remember that in any war, the first casualty is truth, so we assume everyone's lying to us until proven otherwise. Even the Jedi? Cadman asked. Especially the Jedi. Because people who think they're fighting for cosmic righteousness are the most dangerous kind. They'll do terrible things and sleep soundly because they're convinced the universe approves. The jumper streaked through space toward Atlantis, a small dart of ancient technology carrying people who were very far from home and very much alone in a galaxy that wanted to use them. Behind them, on the abandoned station, Count Dooku watched the strange craft disappear and smiled. The game was progressing exactly as his master had foreseen. The newcomers were intelligent, cautious, and powerful, perfect pieces for the final stages of the grand plan. They simply didn't know it yet. The Jedi Temple rose above Coruscant's endless cityscape like a monument to tranquility in the heart of galactic chaos. Its spires reached toward the sky with timeless grace, while meditation gardens and training halls maintained pockets of serenity amid the planet-wide metropolis. For 1,000 generations, the temple had stood as a beacon of wisdom, justice, and the light side of the Force. Today, that serenity was strained. Troubling, this is, Master Yoda said from his seat in the council chamber. The diminutive Jedi Grand Master's eyes were closed, his presence in the Force extended across vast distances as he contemplated the disturbance none of them could quite identify. A void in the Force, these newcomers represent. Yet not darkness. Not absence. Something, other. Master Mace Windu stood near the chamber's windows, hands clasped behind his back as he gazed out at the cityscape. Master Skywalker reports that Count Dooku has also made contact with the Atlantis expedition. We must assume the Separatists are attempting to secure an alliance or, at minimum, prevent us from doing so. Dooku was always a persuasive speaker, Obi-Wan Kenobi observed from his seat. Even when he was still among us, he had a gift for presenting his arguments with compelling logic. I suspect he's painting the Republic as oppressors and the Confederacy as freedom fighters. A perspective not entirely without merit, Master Plo Koon said carefully. The Republic has indeed accumulated unprecedented emergency powers during this conflict. The existence of the clone army raises questions many prefer not to examine too closely. The chamber fell silent, the kind of uncomfortable quiet that came when truth intersected with political necessity. Every Jedi in the room understood the moral complexity of commanding an army of beings created specifically for war. They simply hadn't found an alternative that allowed them to protect the Republic from separatist aggression. The question before us, Mace continued, turning from the window, is not whether our position is perfect. It's whether we allow these newcomers to become a weapon in Dooku's hands. Their technology is unlike anything we've encountered. Their city ships' defensive capabilities alone could turn the tide of entire campaigns. If the Separatists secure an alliance, Then fear, we would use, to justify our actions, Yoda interrupted gently. The way of the dark side, that is. Trust in the Force, we must. If meant to aid us, these people are, then the Force will guide them to understanding. If not, force them, we cannot, without becoming what we oppose. Anakin's hologram flickered as he transmitted from the Resolute. Masters, with respect, we can't just wait and hope the Force works things out. Dooku's already made his pitch. If we don't respond, we're conceding ground by default. What do you suggest, young Skywalker? Master Ki-Adi-Mundi asked. Let me go to them. Not as a military commander, but as someone who can explain what the Jedi actually stand for, not the propaganda version Dooku's selling, but the truth. The Force, the Code, our role as peacekeepers. Let them see us as people, not just political actors. And if they refuse to see? Mace challenged. If they decide neutrality serves their interests better than alliance? Then we respect that choice, Obi-Wan interjected. Surely that's preferable to attempting coercion, which would validate every criticism Dooku levels against us. The Jedi have always stood for consent and free will. We cannot abandon those principles simply because they're inconvenient. Yoda's ears rose slightly, a sign of approval. Wisdom, Master Kenobi shows. Young Skywalker, approach these strangers again, you may. But remember, convince them, you cannot. Only present truth, and allow them to choose. Attachment to outcomes, release. Trust in the Force. Anakin's hologram nodded, though something in his expression suggested frustration. Yes, Master. I'll contact Colonel Shepard and request another meeting. One more thing, Mace added. The Senate is taking notice. Chancellor Palpatine has requested a briefing on the situation. He's concerned about unknown elements during wartime. The Chancellor's concerns are noted, Obi-Wan said diplomatically. Though I wonder if involving the Senate at this stage might complicate matters. Political considerations can cloud judgment where first contact situations require clarity. The Chancellor leads the Republic, Mace replied. He has legitimate interest in any potential alliance or threat. We cannot exclude him from decisions that affect galactic security. The discussion continued, but beneath it ran currents of unease that even the most disciplined Jedi could not entirely suppress. Something about the situation felt wrong, not in any way they could articulate, but in the subtle wrongness of a note played off-key in an otherwise perfect symphony. The Force whispered warnings none of them could quite hear. In his private office deep within the Senate building, Chancellor Palpatine stood before a holographic display showing long-range sensor data from the Christoph Sys system. His expression was carefully controlled, concerned statesman reviewing potential threats, but his mind raced with calculations that had nothing to do with the Republic's security. A city from beyond their reality. Technology that predated even the ancient Sith. Power that existed outside the Force's reach. Magnificent. Dangerous. Unacceptable. Lord Tyrannus reports the meeting proceeded as expected, came the distorted voice of his apprentice through the secure holocom. Count Dooku appeared in miniature, kneeling in the traditional posture of respect. The Atlantis leadership is suspicious of both factions, as anticipated. They value autonomy and mistrust anyone claiming moral authority. The intelligence package should provide them sufficient reason to doubt the Jedi's narrative. Good, Palpatine said, his voice carrying the warmth of an indulgent mentor. But we must be cautious, my friend. These people operate by rules we do not fully understand. They claim to be from an alternate reality. If true, that suggests capabilities we cannot easily counter. The Force itself seems uncertain around them. I sensed it as well, Master. A void where presence should be. Not the absence of the dark side suppressing itself, but genuine emptiness. As if they exist in a space the Force cannot touch. Which makes them either the perfect weapon or the perfect threat. Palpatine moved to his window, gazing out at Coruscant's endless sprawl. The grand plan proceeds according to design. The Jedi are increasingly militarized, the Republic grows more authoritarian, the Senate grants me ever greater powers. But this unexpected variable, it could accelerate our timeline or shatter it entirely. What are your orders, Master? Continue cultivation of the Separatist angle. Make them believe we offer genuine independence and respect. But also, Palpatine's eyes narrowed. Begin contingency plans. If they cannot be swayed, they must be neutralized. No power in this galaxy can be allowed to exist beyond our control. The Sith have waited 1,000 years for this moment. We will not be thwarted by dimensional refugees, however advanced their technology. And if they prove too powerful to neutralize, then we ensure they destroy themselves. Arrange situations where their principles conflict with survival. Force them to make choices that isolate them from potential allies. Turn their strength into weakness. Palpatine smiled, an expression that would have frozen the blood of anyone who saw it. Everyone can be manipulated, Lord Tyrannus. Everyone has pressure points. We simply need to find theirs. It shall be done, my master. The hologram faded, leaving Palpatine alone with his thoughts. Through the window, he could see the Jedi temple in the distance, proud, ancient, doomed. The Jedi believed the Force showed them the future. They had no idea that the future belonged to those who shaped it through will and cunning rather than mystical surrender to cosmic currents. And if these newcomers thought their technology placed them beyond such manipulation, well, they would learn otherwise. Atlantis hung in the black, her shields a faint shimmer against the stars. Inside the city's extensive scientific laboratories, McKay had assembled every physicist, engineer, and xenobiologist in the expedition for what he dramatically called the most important briefing since we figured out how to not blow up the city. The assembled scientists, 37 people representing humanity's finest minds in their respective fields, sat in the amphitheater-style briefing room while McKay paced in front of a holographic display showing incomprehensibly complex quantum field equations. Alright, people, pay attention because I'm only explaining this once. McKay gestured at the display. We've been studying this force phenomenon for 72 hours now. Dr. Zelenka, if you would. Zelenka stood, pulling up a different visualization, this one showing a three-dimensional map of spacetime with unusual fluctuations throughout. What we are seeing is unprecedented. There exists throughout this galaxy a quantum field we are calling, for lack of better terminology, the force field. It permeates all matter and energy at the most fundamental level. It's like, Dr. Jennifer Keller, the expedition's chief medical officer, struggled for comparison. It's like discovering there's a fifth fundamental force of nature that just exists here. And it's not subtle. Every biological sample I've examined shows interaction with this field. It affects cellular function, neurological activity, even genetic expression. Midichlorians, McKay interjected. Microscopic organisms that live symbiotically in all cells in this galaxy. They're the interface between biological organisms and the force field, kind of like how mitochondria handle energy production in our cells, except these things handle, well, we're not entirely sure yet. Some kind of quantum entanglement that allows conscious interaction with the underlying fabric of reality. One of the expedition biologists raised her hand. Are we infected? Did we pick up midichlorians when we arrived? No, Keller said firmly. I've analyzed blood samples from everyone who's left the city. We're not developing midichlorians. Whatever allows beings in this universe to interface with the Force, we don't have it. We're fundamentally incompatible with the system. Which brings us to the really disturbing part, McKay said, pulling up sensor logs from their encounters with Republic and Separatist forces. Watch this carefully. This is footage from when General Skywalker approached our puddle jumper. The hologram showed Anakin moving toward the landed craft, then freezing mid-step, hand going to his lightsaber before relaxing. McKay zoomed in, overlaying quantum field measurements. Right there. See that fluctuation? He sensed something. Or rather, he sensed nothing, which in a universe where everyone and everything exists within this force field, nothing is a huge red flag. We're not just outside their system. We're voids. Blank spots. Spaces where the force should be but isn't. Like we're invisible to their sixth sense, Dr. Brown from astrophysics observed. Exactly. Which has tactical implications. McKay pulled up another display. Ancient technology doesn't just ignore the force, it fundamentally cannot interact with it. Our shields, our weapons, our sensors, they operate on principles that don't account for this field's existence. Which means we're unpredictable, Zelenka finished. They're force users, these Jedi and Sith, they rely on precognition, on sensing danger before it manifests. Against us, that ability is useless. They are, in effect, fighting blind. A heavy silence settled over the briefing room as the implications sank in. So we're like, Lieutenant Cadman, attending as military liaison, searched for words. We're like vampires in a world of mirrors. We don't reflect in their cosmic awareness. Poetic, but accurate, McKay confirmed. Which makes us either very dangerous or very vulnerable, depending on how you look at it. We can't feel the force, so we can't anticipate when force users are manipulating us. But they can't sense us through the force either, so their usual tactical advantages are compromised. There's more, Keller added, her expression troubled. I've been analyzing the physiological data on these clone soldiers the Republic uses. They're perfect. Too perfect. Accelerated growth, enhanced strength and endurance, neurological optimization for combat and obedience. And they're all genetically identical, 3 million soldiers grown from a single template. Slavery, Beckett said quietly from where he stood against the wall. Creating sentient beings specifically for warfare, with no choice in their purpose or fate. It's an abomination. It's also brilliant, in a horrifying way, McKay said. Think about the logistics. Training conventional soldiers takes years. These clones are battle-ready in a fraction of that time. They're loyal, disciplined, and expendable. From a purely tactical perspective, they're the perfect army. Which is precisely what makes it evil, Taylor interjected from the doorway. Everyone turned to see her enter, Shepard beside her. Efficiency is not morality. The Republic creates life solely to spend it in war. That Count Dooku was not entirely wrong troubles me deeply. Shepard moved to the front of the room, arms crossed. All right, people, here's where we are. We've now talked to both sides of this war. The Republic offers partnership and protection while commanding a slave army and accumulating authoritarian powers. The Separatists offer independence and autonomy while being led by corporate interests and military extremists. And somewhere in the middle, we're sitting on 10,000 years of ancient technology that everyone wants. He pulled up a tactical display showing Atlantis's current position. Rodney's analysis confirms we can't leave. The hyperdrive won't interface properly with this universe's dimensional topology. We're stuck here until we either figure out how to reverse the process that brought us here, or we find something in this galaxy that can help us build a bridge back to our reality. How long will that take? Someone asked. Months. Maybe years. Possibly never. McKay's usual arrogance was absent, replaced by rare humility in the face of an unsolvable problem. This isn't like fixing a broken hyperdrive. We need to understand the fundamental nature of two different realities and then figure out how to punch a hole between them. That's beyond anything the ancients ever documented. We're in uncharted territory. The briefing room erupted in concerned murmurs. Shepard let it go for a moment, then raised his hand for silence. Listen up. I know this isn't what anyone signed up for. But we're here, and we need to deal with reality as it is, not as we wish it was. That means making some hard choices about how we survive in this galaxy while working toward getting home. Are we picking a side? Dr. Brown asked. In their war? No, Shepard said firmly. We're maintaining independence. But that doesn't mean complete isolation. We need resources, information, materials, maybe even personnel exchanges if we find people we can trust. The question is how to get what we need without getting dragged into their conflict. Or becoming their target, Ronan added from his position near the door. Right. Which is why, Shepard pulled up a new display showing analysis of both Republic and Separatist intelligence. We're going to play this very carefully. We share nothing critical. We maintain superior position strength. And we make it clear to both sides that forcing us to choose sides will result in us choosing violence. We're too valuable to attack and too dangerous to coerce. That's our best chance at maintaining autonomy. Teyla stepped forward. Colonel Shepard and I have discussed this extensively. We believe the wisest course is strategic ambiguity, remaining engaged with both factions without committing to either. This allows us to gather information, build relationships with individuals rather than institutions, and maintain leverage. It's also exhausting and politically precarious, McKay pointed out. Eventually someone's going to demand we choose. What happens then? Then we choose based on evidence and principle, not pressure and propaganda, Shepard replied. But we buy ourselves time first. Time to understand this galaxy. Time to research getting home. Time to figure out if anyone here can be trusted. Sir, Lieutenant Morrison spoke up from the back. I've been monitoring communications across multiple frequencies. Word is spreading about us. We're showing up in Republic Senate discussions, Separatist military briefings, even commercial news networks. They're calling us everything from the Wanderers to the Ancients Returned to the Ghost City. We're becoming famous. Or infamous. Point is, we can't stay hidden. Then we control the narrative, Shepard decided. Teyla, work with our diplomatic team. We're going to put out a statement, neutral, factual, making clear we're explorers, not conquerors. Emphasize that we're seeking a way home, not looking to interfere in galactic affairs. And if they don't believe us? Keller asked. Then we prove it through actions. We help where we can without taking sides. Medical assistance, scientific exchange, rescue operations, things that demonstrate good faith without military entanglement. Shepard looked around the room at faces ranging from frightened to determined. I know this is hard. I know you're scared. Hell, I'm scared. But we've survived impossible situations before. We'll survive this one too. Together, Teyla added. As we always have. The briefing concluded with assignments distributed, research priorities established, and security protocols updated. As the scientists filed out, discussing theories and contingencies, Shepard remained behind with his core team. You believe this can work? Ronan asked skeptically. Playing both sides, staying neutral while everyone wants us to fight? No, Shepard admitted. I think eventually we'll be forced to choose, and when that happens, it's going to be ugly. But every day we delay that choice is another day for Rodney to figure out how to get us home. That's the play, buy time, stay alive, and hope we're gone before the galaxy forces our hand. And if we can't leave before that happens? Shepard looked out at Atlantis spreading beneath them, a city of light and science, carrying the last legacy of the ancients and 300 people who trusted him to keep them alive. Then we make the choice we can live with, he said quietly. And hope history judges us kindly. In the depths of Atlantis, in a laboratory few expedition members even knew existed, Dr. McKay stood alone before a holographic display showing quantum field equations that would have driven lesser minds to madness. He'd lied during the briefing. Not about the Force, that was all accurate. Not about the hyperdrive, that was genuinely broken. He'd lied about the timeline. Because 3 days ago, while analyzing the dimensional rift that had brought them here, he'd discovered something terrifying. The rift was still open. Not physically, the space-time tear had healed. But quantum entanglement persisted between their home reality and this one. A connection so faint that only ancient sensors could detect it. They could potentially use that connection to go home. But opening a stable portal would require enormous energy, more than their remaining ZPM power could provide. It would require either finding a way to recharge the ZPMs, or discovering an entirely new power source in this galaxy. Or it would require sacrificing Atlantis herself. McKay stared at the equations, at the choice they represented. Save the city and stay trapped forever, or destroy humanity's greatest achievement to go home. He hadn't told Shepard yet. Hadn't told anyone. Because some decisions were too terrible to face until absolutely necessary. And maybe, just maybe, he'd find another way before that moment arrived. 3 weeks after their arrival in the Star Wars galaxy, Atlantis had become the worst-kept secret in the known universe. The expedition's attempt at strategic ambiguity had worked, technically. They'd maintained independence, avoided formal alliances, and kept their most advanced technology secure. But in doing so, they'd also become the subject of intense speculation, political maneuvering, and increasingly bold attempts at infiltration from multiple factions. Shepard sat in his office reviewing the latest intelligence reports with growing frustration. In the past week alone, they'd intercepted 2 Republic reconnaissance drones attempting covert scans, detected 3 separate Separatist probe droids trying to breach their sensor perimeter, caught a Bothan information broker attempting to bribe expedition personnel, and discovered that someone had placed a substantial bounty on verifiable intelligence about ancient technology on the galactic information market. "We're a curiosity," he muttered, scrolling through yet another intercept showing Senate committees debating that Atlantis question. "A shiny new toy everyone wants to play with. More like a weapon everyone wants to aim," Lorne corrected from across the desk. The Major had been running security operations with admirable efficiency, but even he looked worn. "Sir, we can't maintain this defensive posture indefinitely. We're burning drone inventory every time someone gets too close. At current rate of expenditure, we'll be down to emergency reserves in 6 months." "I know." Shepard rubbed his eyes. "Rodney's got people working on manufacturing replacement components, but without proper materials, we're looking at inferior substitutes. And we still haven't found a way to recharge the ZPMs." A knock at the door interrupted them. Tayla entered, and her expression immediately told Shepard this was not a social visit. "We have a situation," she said without preamble. "A distress call. Republic transport carrying civilian refugees from the Ryloth system. They were ambushed by Separatist forces and their hyperdrive was damaged. Life support is failing. They have approximately 4 hours before atmosphere runs out." "Distance?" Shepard asked, already standing. 2 parsecs from our current position. The Republic fleet cannot reach them in time, their nearest vessels are 6 hours away." Tayla pulled up the distress signal on a datapad. 372 people, Colonel. 216 of them children. Shepard and Lorne exchanged glances. This was exactly the kind of situation they'd been dreading, a clear moral imperative that would force them into visible action and potentially compromise their neutrality. "If we respond," Lorne said carefully, "everyone will know. Republic, Separatists, everyone. We'll have declared ourselves. If we don't respond, 300 people die. Including children." Shepard's jaw tightened. "That's not a choice. That's a test of whether we're still human. The Separatists who attacked them may still be in the area," Tayla pointed out. "This could be a trap, bait to draw us into engagement. Then we spring the trap and deal with the consequences." Shepard grabbed his tactical vest from the chair. "Alert McKay, I want a full sensor sweep of the target area before we arrive. Ronan and a full security team. And get Carson ready, if that transport's been shot up, we're going to have wounded." 20 minutes later, a puddle jumper streaked through hyperspace, or rather, what passed for hyperspace in this universe. Ancient hyperdrive technology didn't mesh perfectly with Star Wars dimensional topology, but for short jumps, it functioned adequately. The jumper could make quick tactical runs while Atlantis's main drives remained non-functional. Inside, Shepard piloted with Lorne in co-pilot position, while Beckett, Tala, Ronan, and 6 Marines prepared for emergency extraction. McKay had insisted on coming along, claiming he needed to analyze Republic technology firsthand. Shepard suspected he was mostly bored and looking for an excuse to leave the lab. Approaching target coordinates, Shepard announced as they dropped from hyperspace. Sensors are, whoa. Through the forward viewport, a Republic transport hung dead in space, a massive cylindrical vessel designed for bulk passenger transport, now venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Debris surrounded it, the remains of its escort fighters scattered across several thousand kilometers. And circling like predators were 3 Separatist vessels, 2 Munificent-class frigates and a Providence-class destroyer. "They're still here," Lorne breathed. "They're waiting. Waiting for the Republic to send rescue," McKay said, fingers flying across the sensor console. Classic ambush positioning. The distress call draws in Republic forces, the Separatists destroy them, rinse and repeat. The transport's just bait. "With 300 real people aboard," Beckett said hotly. "That's barbaric. That's war," Ronan rumbled. "Using your enemy's compassion as a weapon." Shepard studied the tactical display, mind racing through options. The jumper was small, fast, and equipped with a cloaking device. But it couldn't hold 300 people, maybe 30 in extreme emergency conditions. They'd need multiple trips, and the Separatist ships would notice a transport bleeding people even if they couldn't see the jumper itself. "Rodney, can we disable those ships without destroying them?" Define disable. McKay pulled up schematics based on their previous encounters. The drones could certainly cripple their engines and weapons systems. But you're talking about attacking Separatist military vessels in an active war zone. That's not exactly maintaining neutrality. Neutrality died the moment they decided to use civilians as bait. Shepard activated the cloaking device, feeling the familiar shimmer as ancient technology bent light around the jumper. "We're saving those people. If the Separatists have a problem with that, they can take it up with our defensive grid." He brought the jumper in on a approach vector that kept the damaged transport between them and the Separatist vessels, using the larger ship's mass to mask their presence. Even cloaked, the jumper generated a faint subspace signature that sophisticated sensors might detect. "Life signs aboard the transport are degrading," Taylor reported, monitoring the ancient sensors. "Hypoxia is setting in. We have perhaps 3 hours, not 4. Then we work fast." Shepard brought the jumper alongside the transport's auxiliary airlock, using the jumper's transporters, ancient technology that these people had never encountered, to cut through the damaged hull plating. "Rodney, can you interface with their systems? I need to talk to whoever's in charge over there." "Already on it. Their computer systems are, primitive is too kind a word. This is like trying to have a conversation with a calculator. But yes, establishing connection now." The jumper's communication system crackled to life, and a human voice came through, female, strained, barely controlled panic underneath professional composure. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Marana Vel of the Republic Transport Bright Hope. I don't know who you are or where you came from, but if you're here to help, we need immediate medical assistance. We have 73 wounded, including critical cases that won't survive transport. Life support is failing throughout decks 4 through 9. And those Separatist ships know we're helpless. They're waiting for Republic rescue so they can spring an ambush," Shepard interrupted. "We know. Captain, this is Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard. We're here to evacuate your people, but we've got a problem. Our ship can't hold everyone at once, and if we start pulling people off, the Separatists will notice and attack." A pause. "Then, who are you? Your ship's signature doesn't match any Republic vessel in the database." "Long story. Short version, we're the city that appeared 3 weeks ago that everyone's been talking about. We're neutral in your war, but we're not neutral about letting kids die because someone decided to use them as bait." Another pause, longer this time. When Captain Vel spoke again, her voice carried a different quality, hope mixed with disbelief. Atlantis? The ghost city? You're real. Very real. And we're about to become very visible. Shepard pulled up the tactical display, showing it to his crew. Here's what's going to happen. Rodney, can you slave their engine controls to your console? Their engines are offline. That's why they're dead in space. Not asking if you can start them. Asking if you can control their reactor. Specifically, if you can make it look like it's about to explode. McKay's eyes widened with understanding. Oh, that's devious. Yes, I can definitely make their power plant throw every alarm code in the manual. Why, oh. Oh, you're brilliant and terrible. Someone want to share with the class? Lorne asked. We're going to make the Separatists think the transport is about to go critical, Shepard explained. Reactor meltdown, catastrophic explosion, debris field that would damage anything nearby. Standard protocol would be to pull back to safe distance. That gives us a window to evacuate everyone before they realize it was a fake. And when they do realize? Ronan asked. Then they're welcome to come complain to Atlantis about our deceptive rescue tactics. Shepard smiled grimly. I suspect they won't. The plan came together with the kind of practiced efficiency that came from years of impossible situations. McKay interfaced with the Bright Hope systems, feeding false data to make the reactor appear unstable. Shepard positioned the jumper for rapid evacuation runs. Beckett prepared medical supplies for triage. The Marines ready to secure multiple entry points. And then McKay triggered the false alarm. Aboard the Separatist destroyer Invincible Retribution, Tactical Officer B-1-3847 watched his sensor display with mechanical precision. The Republic transport had been dead in space for 2 hours now, its distress signal broadcasting continuously. Command had ordered them to maintain position, the signal would eventually draw Republic forces, and when it did, the ambush would be sprung. It was good strategy. B-1-3847 didn't have opinions about strategy, battle droids weren't programmed for opinions, but his logic circuits recognized efficient planning. Then every alarm on his console activated simultaneously. Reactor overload detected on Republic transport, he reported in the flat monotone common to B-1 units. Critical cascade failure in progress. Estimated time to catastrophic breach, 8 minutes. General Grievous stalked onto the bridge, his mechanical body moving with predatory grace. The cyborg general studied the readings, photoreceptors narrowing. Pull back to 5,000 kilometers, he ordered. Maintain sensor lock. If this is a deception, I want to know immediately. The Separatist ships withdrew, their sensors tracking the transport as its reactor readings climbed toward critical. Inside the Bright Hope, Captain Vel was organizing the evacuation with remarkable composure for someone who just discovered that rescue was coming from a source she thought was myth. All hands, this is the captain. Proceed to emergency stations for evacuation. Priority to children and wounded. Everyone else, maintain order and move quickly. We have approximately 7 minutes before our new friends have to explain to some very angry Separatists why our reactor didn't actually explode. The puddle jumper made 3 trips in rapid succession, using a combination of the transporter and old-fashioned docking procedures to evacuate passengers. Each trip took 90 seconds, much faster than traditional shuttles, limited only by how quickly people could move through the jumper's small hatches. Beckett worked triage with practiced efficiency, stabilizing critical patients while directing walking wounded to available space. The Marines maintained order with the kind of gentle firmness that came from professionals who understood scared people needed structure, not aggression. And through it all, McKay kept the reactor readings climbing, feeding the Separatist sensors exactly what they expected to see, a ship dying by degrees, its crew having minutes to live. On the final run, with the last 37 evacuees aboard, mostly children clutching stuffed animals and looking terrified, Shepard brought the jumper away from the Bright Hope at maximum thrust. Rodney, kill the fake readings. Let them see the reactors fine. And when they realize we just played them, they'll be confused, angry, and several thousand kilometers away. Perfect combination. Shepard engaged the hyperdrive, feeling the familiar lurch as ancient technology tore a hole in spacetime. Atlantis, this is Jumper 1. 372 souls inbound for medical processing and guest quarters. Alert the quartermaster, we're going to need a lot of beds. Behind them, aboard the invincible Retribution, General Grievous watched as the Republic transport's reactor readings suddenly normalized. No explosion. No debris field. Just an empty ship and the realization that somehow, someone had evacuated 372 people from under his sensors without him noticing. Find them, he snarled to his tactical officer. Scan for any ship that was in range. I want to know who just made a fool of me. But the ancient cloaking device left no trace, and the jumper's hyperspace signature was already fading into background radiation. The evacuation had been perfect. And the consequences were just beginning. News of the rescue spread through hyperspace communication networks with the speed of light itself. Within hours, every major news service in the Republic was broadcasting the story. The mysterious city ship Atlantis had conducted a daring rescue of Republic civilians from certain death, outmaneuvering Separatist forces without firing a shot. The Senate erupted in debate. Some representatives praised the newcomers as heroes and potential allies. Others questioned why foreign elements were conducting military operations in Republic space without authorization. Still others worried about what price Atlantis would demand for their assistance. In the Jedi Temple, Master Yoda listened to the reports with his eyes closed, feeling the currents of the Force swirl with uncertainty. Compassion, they showed, he observed to the assembled council. Yet attachment, they avoided. Saved lives without taking sides. Interesting, this is. It was a PR move, Mace Windu said, though his tone suggested he didn't entirely believe his own words. They needed to demonstrate good intentions. What better way than a dramatic rescue? Or, Obi-Wan countered, they simply couldn't stand by and watch children die. Not everything is strategy, Master Windu. Sometimes compassion is just compassion. The debate continued, but beneath it ran a simple truth that every Jedi in the chamber felt. The galaxy had been watching Atlantis, waiting to see what they truly were. Now they had their answer. And it changed everything. In a darkened Senate office, Palpatine read the reports with cold calculation. His apprentice had been right, these newcomers were compassionate. Compassion was weakness. Weakness could be exploited. Already, plans were forming. Ways to use their very virtues as chains. Ways to force them into positions where their principles would demand action, where neutrality would become impossible. The Clone Wars had been designed to accomplish many things: the destruction of the Jedi, the rise of the Empire, the elimination of all threats to Sith dominance. The Atlantis expedition would serve those purposes whether they intended to or not. Because in war, those who refused to choose sides eventually discovered that everyone chose for them. And the choice was rarely kind. The refugee crisis began 3 days after the rescue. Shepard stood in Atlantis's main hangar bay, a cavernous space designed to accommodate puddle jumpers and ancient technology, now serving as an impromptu refugee processing center. Captain Vel and her 372 survivors had been provided temporary quarters, medical care, and the kind of hospitality that the expedition could ill afford but couldn't morally refuse. The problem was that word had spread. "Sir, we've got another one," Lieutenant Morrison reported from the communications hub. Transport ship requesting emergency docking. Engine failure, life support critical. 87 people aboard. They're broadcasting our rescue on all frequencies, saying Atlantis will protect them. That's the fourth today, Lorne said grimly. And it's not even noon. Shepard closed his eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices settling on his shoulders. They'd saved one group of refugees, and in doing so, they'd become a beacon for every desperate soul in the sector. Ships were diverting to their coordinates, hoping for sanctuary that Atlantis couldn't provide. "We can't keep doing this," McKay said, appearing from the direction of the science labs with data pads in each hand and exhaustion written across his face. "We're already at 120% capacity. Life support can handle it for now, but if we keep taking in refugees, we'll hit critical levels within a week. And that's assuming no one gets sick, which, spoiler alert, they will." Dr. Keller emerged from the medical bay, pulling off surgical gloves. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "We've got cases of Heskin fever, malnutrition, and what appears to be some kind of parasitic infection I've never seen before. I need supplies, medical supplies from this galaxy because our own stocks are designed for Earth biology. Without local pharmaceuticals, people are going to die." "We're explorers, not a refugee agency," one of the expedition scientists said, Dr. Kavanaugh, who'd been complaining loudly about the situation since the first refugees arrived. "This isn't our responsibility. We should transfer them to Republic authorities and be done with it." "And when the next ship shows up?" Taylor challenged. "Do we simply turn them away? Tell them to die elsewhere because helping them is inconvenient?" "I'm saying we can't save everyone," Kavanaugh shot back. "We're 300 people with finite resources in an alien galaxy. Every refugee we take in is one less meal for expedition personnel, one less bed, one less medical supply when we need it. At some point, self-preservation has to take priority over charity." The argument was interrupted by Ronan's flat voice from the doorway. "He's not wrong." Everyone turned to stare at the Satadan. Ronan met their gazes without flinching. "I've been a refugee," he said quietly. "Spent 7 years running from the Wraith after they destroyed Satida. I know what it's like to need help that isn't coming. But I also know that you can't save people who are drowning if you drown yourself trying. The expedition has to survive. If we burn through our resources saving everyone who asks, we'll end up needing rescue ourselves." Shepard looked around at his people, exhausted, frightened, divided. The expedition had always pulled together in crisis, but this was different. This wasn't a clear enemy to fight or a technical problem to solve. This was the slow grinding pressure of impossible moral calculus. "We need help," he said finally. "We can't do this alone. Taylor, contact the Republic. Tell them we're willing to provide temporary shelter for refugees, but we need support, medical supplies, food, transportation to relocate them to proper facilities. We'll be a way station, not a permanent solution." "And if they refuse?" she asked. "Then we make the same offer to the Separatists, the neutral worlds, anyone who'll listen. Because if we don't get help soon, Dr. Kavanaugh's right, we'll go under trying to save people we don't have the capacity to save." The response from Coruscant came within hours, and it was not what Shepard had hoped for. Anakin Skywalker's hologram appeared in the control room, his expression troubled. "Colonel, the Senate is debating. There are factions that see this as an opportunity to build goodwill with you, others who view refugee support as a drain on war resources, and still others who think the whole situation is a separatist plot to infiltrate your city. People are dying while they debate." Shepard's voice was dangerously quiet. "I know. Believe me, I know. The Jedi Council is pushing for humanitarian assistance, but the Senate controls the budget and the military. We're trying to cut through the bureaucracy, but," Anakin hesitated. "There's something else. Chancellor Palpatine wants to meet with you. Personally. He says if you'll come to Coruscant for formal negotiations, he can expedite aid to your refugees." Every instinct Shepard possessed screamed warning. That's a trap. Maybe. Probably. But it might also be your only option. Anakin leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Look, I don't always agree with the Senate, and I definitely don't like using refugees as leverage. But the Chancellor has the authority to override bureaucratic delays. If you want help fast, he's your best bet." Shepard muted the transmission and turned to his senior staff. "Opinions?" "It's absolutely a trap," McKay said immediately. "They want you on their home ground, surrounded by their military, where they have all the leverage. Classic power play. But we do need help, Keller pointed out. I've got 60 patients who won't survive another week without proper treatment. If this is the price for getting them care. The price is Colonel Shepard walking into a situation we can't control, Lorne argued. Sir, you go to Coruscant, you're putting yourself at the mercy of politicians who've been trying to figure out how to use us since we arrived. Taylor was quiet, her expression thoughtful. Finally, she spoke. In my experience with Athosian diplomatic traditions, such invitations serve two purposes. They assess you personally, your character, your resolve, your weaknesses. But they also commit the inviting party to certain obligations. If Chancellor Palpatine extends personal invitation and you accept, he becomes responsible for your safety and treatment. To betray that would lose him considerable political standing. Unless he's willing to pay that price, Ronan pointed out. Then we ensure the price is too high. Shepard unmuted the transmission. All right, General. Tell your Chancellor I'll come to Coruscant. But on specific conditions. I bring my own security detail, non-negotiable. The meeting takes place in a public venue, not some private office where accidents can happen. And I want transportation back to Atlantis available at all times, under my control. If he can't agree to those terms, he can send aid without the diplomatic theater. Anakin grinned. I'll relay your conditions. Fair warning though, Coruscant is, a lot. It's a planet-wide city. Trillions of people. The Senate building alone is bigger than most settlements. If you've never seen anything like it, it can be overwhelming. We lived in a city under an alien ocean while fighting space vampires, McKay interjected from off-screen. I think we can handle your big buildings. Space vampires? Anakin's expression suggested he wasn't sure if that was a joke. Long story. The point is, we're coming. Set it up. The transmission ended, leaving the control room in tense silence. This is a mistake, Lorne said flatly. Probably, Shepard agreed. But we're out of good options. We can sit here and watch refugees die, or we can take the risk and maybe, get them the help they need. I'll take the calculated risk over certain failure every time. Then I'm going with you, Ronan said, no room for argument in his voice. Me too, Taylor added. If this is a diplomatic mission, you need someone who actually understands diplomacy. No offense, Colonel. None taken. I know my strengths, and pretty speeches aren't among them. Shepard moved to the control chair, settling into it and feeling Atlantis' systems respond to his presence. Rodney, you're in command while I'm gone. McKay looked up sharply. What? No. Absolutely not. You're taking me with you. I need to see Coruscant's technological infrastructure, their power generation systems. I need you here keeping this city running and our people alive. That's not a request. Shepard's voice carried absolute authority. If something happens to me on Coruscant, the expedition needs leadership. You're second in command for a reason. A reason which I've repeatedly told you was a terrible idea. Rodney. McKay deflated slightly. Fine. But if you die doing something heroically stupid, I'm going to be very annoyed at your funeral. Noted. Major Lorne, coordinate with Dr. Keller on refugee medical needs. Get me a list of supplies we need, specific items, quantities, sources. If I'm negotiating, I want to know exactly what we're asking for. Yes, sir. And Rodney, Shepard stood, meeting his friend's eyes. If things go wrong on Coruscant, if you don't hear from us within 48 hours. I take Atlantis and run, McKay finished quietly. Find somewhere to hide while figuring out how to get home. I know the protocol. Good. Shepard clasped McKay's shoulder briefly. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. 2 days later, a puddle jumper descended through Coruscant's atmosphere, and Shepard got his first real look at what passed for normal in this galaxy. The planet was a city. Not a city on a planet, a city that had consumed the entire planetary surface. Towers stretched toward orbit, so tall that atmospheric processors maintained breathable air at their peaks. Traffic lanes filled the sky at multiple altitudes, thousands upon thousands of vehicles moving in choreographed chaos. Lights blazed from every surface, turning night into perpetual twilight. It was magnificent and horrifying in equal measure. There must be, Taylor trailed off, unable to complete the calculation. Trillions, Shepard said, reading the data from ancient sensors. Population estimates put Coruscant at over 3 trillion sentient beings. This one planet has more people than the entire Milky Way galaxy in our universe. Ronan stared out the viewport, his hand unconsciously moving to his particle magnum. How do you feed that many people? Very carefully, I imagine. Shepard followed the traffic control directions, guiding the jumper toward the Senate district. And with a logistics network that makes Earth look primitive. The Senate building rose before them, a massive mushroom-shaped structure that dominated the district. Its scale defied comprehension. The jumper could have fit inside one of its landing bays 100 times over. Ancient architecture had been impressive, but this was raw civilizational power made manifest in metal and stone. They landed in a diplomatic bay where a delegation was already waiting. Clone troopers in ceremonial armor, Senate guards in formal dress, and standing at the center, a figure Shepard recognized from intelligence briefings, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. The man was older, late 60s or early 70s, with a grandfatherly face that radiated warmth and understanding. His robes were elegant but understated, and his smile as he approached the jumper seemed genuinely pleased. Every one of Shepard's instincts screamed that this man was dangerous. Colonel Shepard, Palpatine said as the jumper's hatch opened. His voice was cultured, kind, and utterly sincere. Welcome to Coruscant. I apologize for the delay in providing assistance. Bureaucracy can be frustratingly slow even in times of crisis. Please, come with me. We have much to discuss. Shepard descended the ramp, Taylor and Ronan flanking him, the 3 Marines behind them maintaining professional readiness. He shook Palpatine's offered hand, noting the politician's grip, firm but not aggressive, confident but not domineering. Mr. Chancellor. Thank you for agreeing to meet on such short notice. Not at all. Your actions rescuing those refugees from Ryloth were extraordinary. The Republic is grateful, as am I, personally. Palpatine gestured toward the Senate building. Come. Let me show you what we've built here. What we're trying to preserve against those who would tear it down. They walked through corridors that could have held starships, past rooms where senators from 1,000 worlds debated policy, beneath ceilings that disappeared into architectural distance. Everywhere, Shepard saw the machinery of governance, complex, massive, and utterly overwhelming. Impressive, isn't it? Palpatine asked, noting Shepard's expression. 25,000 years of civilization, Colonel. Longer than your species has possessed written language. We've achieved things your people are only beginning to imagine, faster than light travel, galactic communication, coordination among billions of worlds. And yet, it's all so fragile. Because of the Separatists. Because of entropy. Palpatine led them into a private office overlooking the Senate chamber, a vast circular room where hundreds of hovering platforms held representatives from across the galaxy. Order requires constant effort, Colonel. The moment you stop building, maintaining, reinforcing, everything falls apart. The Separatists represent that entropy. They want to dissolve the bonds that hold civilization together, to return to isolated tribalism where the strong prey on the weak. Or they want freedom from a government that stopped serving its people, Shepard countered carefully. Depends on your perspective. Palpatine smiled, not offended, but pleased, as if Shepard had passed some kind of test. Indeed it does. And that's precisely why I wanted to meet you personally, Colonel. You understand complexity. You recognize that truth has many faces. That's rare in these times of binary thinking. He moved to a sideboard, pouring 2 glasses of something amber and offering one to Shepard. The Jedi see the Force in absolutes, light and dark, good and evil. The Separatists see politics in absolutes, oppressor and oppressed, core and rim. But you've maintained neutrality in a galaxy that despises fence-sitters. That takes wisdom. Or perhaps experience with situations where both sides were partially right and wholly wrong. Shepard sipped the drink, some kind of brandy, smooth and expensive. We've been in enough wars to know they're rarely as simple as people claim. Exactly. Palpatine set down his glass, his expression becoming earnest. Which is why I need your help, Colonel. Not as a military ally, I understand you wish to remain neutral. But as someone who can see clearly what those of us inside the conflict cannot. The Republic is dying. Not because of the Separatists, but because of its own corruption and inefficiency. I've tried to reform it, but every change I propose is blocked by vested interests, by bureaucrats protecting their privileges, by senators more concerned with their careers than their constituents. So you've been accumulating emergency powers, Tala observed neutrally. Because the Senate gave them to me. Palpatine's frustration seemed genuine, and Shepard found himself wondering how much was performance and how much was real. Every time there's a crisis, they vote me more authority because they lack the courage to make hard decisions themselves. And then they resent me for wielding the powers they granted. It's maddening. I never wanted to be Emperor, Colonel. I wanted to be a public servant. But circumstances keep pushing me toward dictatorship because the alternative is collapse. Shepard studied the Chancellor carefully. The man was good, better than anyone he'd encountered in this galaxy. Every word, every gesture, every expression calibrated to present the image of a reluctant leader burdened by responsibility. It was masterful. And almost certainly bullshit. But Shepard needed something from this man, so he played along. What exactly are you asking for, Chancellor? Perspective. Advice. The insight of someone who's not trapped in our patterns of thinking. Palpatine moved to the window, looking out at the Senate chamber below. You've seen both sides of our conflict. You've maintained independence while demonstrating compassion. I want to know, honestly, candidly, how do we end this war without destroying what we're trying to save? It was a trap. It had to be. But it was also possibly a genuine question from a politician who'd maneuvered himself into a position he might not have entirely wanted. Shepard made a choice. You start by trusting people less and institutions more, he said. Every dictatorship in history started with someone who believed they were the only one who could fix things. Maybe that's even true, maybe you are the best person to lead the Republic right now. But the moment you make yourself indispensable, you guarantee that your death or succession will collapse everything you built. Institutions outlast individuals. Processes outlast personalities. If you want the Republic to survive, you need to build systems that work without you. Palpatine turned from the window, and for just a moment, something flickered in his eyes, calculation, perhaps, or reassessment. Then it was gone, replaced by the grandfatherly smile. Wise words, Colonel. Perhaps too wise for what this galaxy is ready to hear. But I'll consider them carefully. He moved back to his desk, pulling up a holographic display. In the meantime, let me address your immediate concerns. Medical supplies for your refugees, I'm authorizing a shipment from Republic stockpiles. Food, medicine, basic necessities. Enough for 500 people for 2 months. That's generous. It's inadequate, but it's what I can authorize without Senate approval. As for permanent relocation of your refugees, I'm afraid that will take time. The Republic is already struggling with millions of war refugees. Adding more to the burden. I understand. Shepard hadn't expected better. We appreciate whatever help you can provide. There is one thing you could do in return, Palpatine said carefully. Not an alliance, I know you wish to avoid that. But perhaps a gesture of good faith. The Republic has wounded soldiers who might benefit from your advanced medical technology. If you are willing to share some medical knowledge, nothing military, just humanitarian assistance. And there it was. The real reason for the meeting. Not refugees, those were just the hook. Palpatine wanted access to ancient technology, even if he had to start with something as innocuous as medical data. I'll discuss it with our medical staff, Shepard said noncommittally. Some of our technology might be adaptable to your medical systems. We'd need to review it carefully. Of course. No pressure, Colonel. I simply thought I'd ask. Palpatine stood, signaling the meeting's conclusion. Thank you for coming. I hope this is the beginning of a productive relationship, not as master and subordinate, but as equals working toward common goals. They shook hands again, and Shepard maintained his professional smile while his mind raced through implications. As they walked back to the jumper, Ronan leaned close. That man is dangerous. Very, Shepard agreed quietly. He's playing a game we can't see all the pieces of. But he's also providing help we need, Taylor pointed out. And he asked for nothing concrete in return. That suggests either genuine goodwill or very long-term planning. Smart money's on the second one, Shepard said. The puddle jumper lifted off, carrying them back toward Atlantis, toward the refugees they might now actually be able to help, toward the consequences of choices they couldn't yet fully understand. And in his office, Palpatine watched them go with satisfaction warming his ancient heart. The newcomers were compassionate. Compassion could be weaponized. They were proud. Pride could be leveraged. They were intelligent. Intelligence could be misdirected. They thought they were playing the great game cautiously, maintaining independence, avoiding entanglement. They didn't realize they were already caught. The attack came without warning, 3 weeks after Shepard's meeting with Palpatine. Atlantis's long-range sensors detected the hyperspace signatures first, multiple capital ships emerging from FTL in a coordinated strike pattern. But these weren't Republic vessels or the angular Separatist cruisers they'd grown familiar with. These were something else entirely. I'm reading 12 contacts, Lieutenant Morrison reported, her voice tight with tension. Configuration doesn't match anything in our database. They're not broadcasting identification codes. And they're launching fighters, hundreds of them. McKay was at the sensor station before anyone could react, his fingers flying across the ancient controls. Those aren't fighters. Those are, oh no. Oh, that's very not good. Rodney, Shepard snapped, moving to the control chair. English. Now. They're droid bombers. Advanced models, heavier than anything we've seen from the Separatists. And the capital ships, McKay pulled up enhanced scans. They're moving into bombardment formation. Someone's decided that if they can't have Atlantis, nobody can. Through the neural interface, Shepard felt Atlantis respond to the threat. The city's shields were already at full strength, humming with power drawn from the ZPMs, drone weapons bays opened, thousands of the sleek ancient projectiles preparing for launch. Sensor grids mapped every incoming threat with precision that would have seemed impossible in any other context. But even with all that power, the numbers were daunting. Shields to maximum, Shepard ordered, his consciousness expanding through the city's systems. Charge the drone weapons. Get me tactical analysis on those capital ships, I want to know their weak points. And someone tell me who the hell is attacking us. Working on it. McKay's console erupted with data streams. Their communication protocols are encrypted, but the underlying architecture is separatist. These are Confederate forces, but not regular military. The ship configurations suggest, oh, this is bad. These are ships registered to the Techno-Union. Corporate military forces, not official Confederate Navy. Taylor arrived in the control room at a run, Ronan close behind her. The refugees? Being moved to interior compartments, Major Lorne reported from his station. Away from the outer hull, maximum structural protection. But if those shields fail, They won't, Shepard said with more confidence than he felt. Through the viewports, the droid bomber wings were accelerating toward Atlantis, their formations precise and deadly. Behind them, the capital ships rotated to bring their heavy weapons to bear. This wasn't a probe or a test. This was an extermination attempt. Incoming transmission, Morrison announced. It's encrypted, but I'm getting it through. Audio only. Put it through. A voice emerged from the speakers, mechanically distorted, emotionless, and utterly cold. Unknown vessel designated Atlantis. You have violated the sovereign space of the Confederacy of Independent Systems by conducting unauthorized military operations and harboring Republic personnel. Surrender your vessel for inspection and trial, or be destroyed. You have 30 seconds to comply. That's not Dooku, McKay said immediately. Voice pattern doesn't match. And the Confederacy claimed they wanted to negotiate, not attack. Guess somebody changed their mind. Shepard's hands tightened on the chair's armrests as he felt the first wave of bombers enter effective weapons range. Or somebody's acting without Dooku's knowledge. Either way, they picked the wrong city to threaten. Morrison, open a channel. Let's see if we can talk them down. Channel open, sir. This is Lieutenant Colonel John Sheppard, commanding Atlantis. We're not surrendering, we're not leaving, and we sure as hell aren't letting you board. We've maintained neutrality in your war, provided humanitarian aid to both sides, and conducted ourselves according to every civilized standard. If you want to explain why that deserves a death sentence, I'm listening. But you've got about 20 seconds before our defensive systems interpret your bomber wing as hostile action and respond accordingly. Silence from the other side. Then, after 15 long seconds, your neutrality is a fiction. Your presence destabilizes the balance of power. You will comply or be eliminated. Well, Shepard said. We tried talking. Rodney, how many drones do we have available? 3,247. After that, we're down to emergency reserves. Make them count. Fire. Through the control chair, Shepard felt the drone weapons launch, a swarm of ancient death leaving their bays in perfect coordination. The drones accelerated to impossible velocities, their guidance systems locked onto the incoming bomber wings with precision that made modern targeting computers look like abacuses. The droid bombers never had a chance. Ancient drones weren't missiles, they were semi-sentient weapons platforms that could adapt to countermeasures in real time. When the bombers tried evasive maneuvers, the drones simply recalculated. When they deployed chaff, the drones switched to alternate targeting protocols. When they attempted to intercept the drones with point defense fire, the drones wove through the defensive screen like they were dancing. In 47 seconds, 300 droid bombers ceased to exist. The capital ships responded by opening fire with their main batteries, turbolaser bolts that could crack moons, ion cannons designed to disable vessels 10 times Atlantis' size, proton torpedoes launched in waves that would have overwhelmed any conventional shielding. The ancient shields held. Each impact sent ripples of energy cascading across the barrier, but the fundamental strength never wavered. 10,000 years of engineering had created something that could withstand stellar radiation, tectonic forces, and weapons fire that would have vaporized lesser constructions. Shield strength at 94%, Taylor reported. Rate of depletion is sustainable for approximately 4 hours at current bombardment levels. They're not going to keep this up for 4 hours, McKay said, studying the tactical display. They're expending enormous energy with minimal effect. They'll either escalate or withdraw within. The capital ships launched a second wave of bombers, and this time, they were different. Larger. Heavier. And their energy signatures suggested they were carrying something far more dangerous than conventional ordnance. Those are proton bombs, Morrison said, her voice rising with alarm. Each one carries destructive yield equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. If they get through the shields, they won't. Shepard sent another flight of drones streaking toward the incoming bombers, but this time, the enemy had learned. The bombers stayed in tight formation, their combined point defense fire creating overlapping fields that destroyed some of the drones before they could reach their targets. Not enough to stop the ancient weapons, but enough to slow them down. 5 bombers broke through the drone screen and accelerated toward Atlantis on suicide runs. "Ronan," Shepard said calmly. "Jumper Bay 2. Take a team and intercept those bombers before they reach effective weapons range. You've got 2 minutes." Ronan was already moving, his particle magnum in hand and a feral grin on his face. "On it." Through the city's sensors, Shepard tracked Ronan's team commandeering a puddle jumper and launching into the firestorm surrounding Atlantis. The small craft's shields activated, its cloaking device engaged, and then it was streaking toward the bomber formation like a predator after prey. The bombers never saw it coming. Ronan's jumper materialized directly above the bomber formation, its own drone weapons launching at point-blank range. 3 bombers exploded in rapid succession. The 4th attempted to evade, only to find itself in Ronan's gun sights as the jumper's forward weapons, ancient energy cannons that had been built when these people's ancestors were still discovering fire, reduced it to expanding plasma. The 5th bomber got through. It dove toward Atlantis, its pilot, or more accurately, its droid brain, calculating the optimal detonation point for maximum shield stress. The proton bomb armed, its timer counting down in nanoseconds. Shepard reached through the control chair's connection, feeling for the city's transporters. Ancient technology could relocate matter across significant distances. Could it work on an incoming bomb traveling at combat velocities? Only one way to find out. He activated the transporter, locked onto the bomber's mass signature, and pushed. The bomber vanished, reappearing 2,000 kilometers away in the middle of the attacking fleet's formation. The proton bomb detonated exactly as designed, its destructive energy washing over 2 of the capital ships in an expanding sphere of atomic fire. One ship's shields failed catastrophically. The other lost its forward weapons arrays and began venting atmosphere. "Did you just?" McKay stared at Shepard with something between horror and admiration. "Did you just teleport a nuclear bomb into their own fleet?" Seemed appropriate. Shepard's voice was cold, his focus absolute as he felt through the city's systems for their next move. They wanted to see what ancient technology could do. Let's show them. He sent another wave of drones, not at the bombers this time, but at the capital ships themselves. Ancient drones were designed to penetrate shields, find weak points, and exploit them with ruthless efficiency. They struck at engine assemblies, weapons emplacements, bridge structures, anywhere that would maximize damage while minimizing the expenditure of resources. 3 capital ships lost propulsion. 2 more had their weapons systems crippled. And the remaining 7 began pulling back, their commanders finally recognizing that they were facing something far beyond their capacity to counter. "They're retreating," Morrison reported. "All vessels withdrawing to hyperspace jump distance." "Let them go," Shepard ordered. "Don't pursue. We've made our point." Through the viewports, the attacking fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind debris fields and the expanding gas clouds of destroyed ships. Atlantis hung in the aftermath, her shields still glowing, her drones returning to their bays like faithful hounds returning to their master. "Casualty report?" Shepard asked, though he already knew the answer through his connection to the city's systems. "None," Lorne said, relief evident in his voice. "Minor injuries from people being thrown around during evasive maneuvers, but nothing serious. The refugees are shaken but safe." "Drone expenditure?" McKay asked. 432 drones expended. That leaves us with 2,815. Still substantial, but, McKay trailed off, the unspoken concern hanging in the air. Every battle depleted their finite resources. Every drone used was one they couldn't replace. Shepard climbed out of the control chair, his body exhausted from the neural connection's intensity. Analysis. Who were they, and why did they attack? The ships were registered to the Techno Union, McKay said, pulling up identification data. A corporate entity within the Separatist coalition. They manufacture battle droids and military equipment. My guess? Someone decided that ancient technology was too dangerous to leave in independent hands, so they tried to eliminate us before we could become a bigger problem. Without Dooku's authorization? Tayla asked. Possibly. Or with his quiet approval, giving him deniability if it failed. She moved to stand beside Shepard, her expression grave. Either way, this changes everything. We've been attacked by a major galactic power. That's an act of war, whether they call it that or not. Which means we can't stay neutral anymore, Lorne observed. The moment we responded with lethal force, we chose a side. Ronan's jumper settled back into its bay, and the Satadan emerged looking satisfied with the brief combat. Good fight. Short, but good. We just killed potentially thousands of droids and destroyed several capital ships, Keller said, arriving from the medical bay. That's not a good fight, Ronan. That's a tragedy. They were droids, Ronan pointed out. Not alive. The ships had crew. Even droid-operated vessels need maintenance personnel, commanders, support staff. We killed people today. Keller looked directly at Shepard. I need to know that was necessary. That we didn't have another choice. Shepard met her gaze steadily. They gave us 30 seconds to surrender before opening fire on a city full of civilians. They launched weapons of mass destruction at us. We responded with proportional force and stopped as soon as they withdrew. Yes, Doctor, it was necessary. And yes, I'd do it again. Keller nodded slowly, accepting if not entirely comfortable with the answer. Sir, incoming transmission, Morrison announced. Multiple sources. Republic, Separatist, Anne. I'm reading signals from at least a dozen independent news networks. Everyone wants to talk to us. Of course they do. We just demonstrated that Atlantis isn't just defensively impressive, we're capable of projecting force that can cripple capital ships. Shepard looked around the control room at his exhausted, frightened, determined people. Put through the Republic transmission first. Let's see what Anakin has to say about this. The hologram that appeared wasn't Anakin. It was Obi-Wan Kenobi, and his expression was carefully neutral. Colonel Shepard. I see you've had an eventful morning. That's one way to put it. You calling to congratulate us on surviving, or to lecture us about escalation? Neither. I'm calling to warn you. Obi-Wan's tone was serious, stripped of his usual diplomatic pleasantness. What just happened is going to create shockwaves throughout the galaxy. The Techno-Union acted without official Separatist authorization. Count Dooku has already disavowed the attack publicly. But that won't matter to the hundreds of factions now recalculating their position regarding Atlantis. Meaning some will see you as powerful allies worth courting. Others will see you as threats requiring elimination. Still others will see you as prizes to be claimed. You've demonstrated capabilities that upset the strategic balance. That makes you the single most important variable in this war. We don't want to be anyone's variable, Shepard said tiredly. We just want to be left alone long enough to figure out how to get home. I understand. But the galaxy rarely grants what we want simply because we want it. Obi-Wan leaned forward slightly. The Jedi Council is prepared to offer you formal protection. Station Republic forces around your position, provide intelligence on potential threats, coordinate defensive operations. You would remain autonomous, but you'd have allies. At the cost of picking a side. At the cost of acknowledging that you've already picked one, whether you intended to or not. The Techno-Union is separatist. You destroyed their forces. In the eyes of many, that makes you a Republic ally by default. Shepard wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Obi-Wan was right. The moment they defended themselves against Separatist forces, they'd taken a position in the galactic conflict, regardless of their intentions. I need to discuss this with my people, he said finally. We'll contact you with our decision. Don't take too long, Colonel. The next attack may not be so easily repelled. The hologram faded, leaving the control room in heavy silence. He's right, McKay said quietly. We can't keep pretending we're above the conflict. Today proved that. We didn't start this fight, Shepard replied. No. But we finished it. And in doing so, we demonstrated that ancient technology isn't just defensive, it's devastating when deployed offensively. Every faction in this galaxy just recalculated their threat assessment of us. We're not neutral observers anymore. We're a major military power whether we want to be or not. Taylor moved to the viewport, looking out at the debris field surrounding Atlantis. In Athosian tradition, there's a saying, the strong who refuse to choose sides often find that all sides choose for them. We sought to remain neutral, but our very power made that impossible. The question now is not whether we fight, but whom we fight beside. Or against, Ronan added darkly. Shepard looked around at his senior staff, the people who'd followed him through impossible situations, who trusted his judgment even when it led them into danger. They were scared, exhausted, and thousands of light years from anything resembling home. And they were looking to him for answers he didn't have. All right, he said finally. Here's what we're going to do. Rodney, I want full analysis of our resource situation, drones, ZPM power, everything. How long can we sustain operations at current expenditure rates? Taylor, reach out to both Republic and Separatist contacts. I want to know what each side is offering, what they're asking for, and what the actual cost would be. Not the promises, the reality. And then? Lorne asked. Then we make the hardest choice we've faced since arriving here. Because Master Kenobi is right about one thing, we can't keep avoiding this. Today's attack forced our hand. Now we need to decide how to play it. He moved back to the control chair, settling into it and feeling Atlantis respond to his presence. Through the neural connection, he could sense the city's status, damaged but functional, depleted but still powerful, ancient but still protecting her people as she'd done for 10,000 years. We're going to survive this, he said, as much to Atlantis as to his crew. We always do. But it's going to cost us. The question is what price we're willing to pay. In the darkness of space beyond Atlantis's sensor range, a single ship observed the battle's aftermath. It was small, fast, and equipped with stealth systems that made it invisible to ancient scanners. Inside, a figure studied the data with cold calculation. Lord Sidious had watched the battle with great interest. The newcomers were indeed powerful, perhaps powerful enough to threaten even his carefully laid plans. But power, as he'd learned over a lifetime of Sith mastery, was only dangerous if properly directed. Misdirected power was simply another tool. And he was very, very good at misdirection. The decision came after 3 days of debate that tested the expedition's unity like nothing before. In Atlantis's main conference room, a space designed by the ancients for deliberation, now hosting arguments that would have been incomprehensible to its builders, the expedition leadership gathered for what everyone understood would be a defining moment. The refugees had been relocated to Republic facilities with Jedi escort, removing one immediate pressure but creating another. They'd accepted Republic assistance, deepening the perception of alliance whether they intended it or not. Shepard sat at the head of the table, exhaustion written in every line of his face. Around him sat the people whose judgment he'd learned to trust, McKay, Taylor, Ronan, Lorne, Keller, Zelenka, and Dr. Elizabeth Weir, who'd returned from a research mission to the city's ancient database to find the situation radically transformed. We have 3 realistic options, Weir said, her diplomatic training evident as she outlined the analysis with clinical precision. First, accept formal Republic alliance. We'd gain military protection, resource access, and integration into the galactic community. Cost, we'd be combatants in their war, targets for Separatist forces, and subordinate to Republic authority structures. Hard pass, McKay muttered. Second option, negotiate with the Separatists. Count Dooku has disavowed the Techno-Union attack and offered to discuss terms of mutual non-aggression. We'd gain independence recognition and potential trade relationships. Cost: we'd be alienating the Republic, legitimizing a faction that may or may not represent genuine independence movements, and trusting people who've already demonstrated willingness to attack us. Also hard pass, Ronan said flatly. Third option: remain independent but establish defensive pacts with neutral systems. Build our own coalition of powers who want no part of this war. Cost: we'd have limited resources, constant diplomatic overhead, and no guarantee that our allies wouldn't abandon us when pressured. So all our options are terrible, Lorne summarized. Great. There's a fourth option, McKay said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. He pulled out a data pad, displaying equations that only he and Zelenka could fully understand. I've been analyzing the quantum entanglement signature connecting us to our home reality. The rift that brought us here left a trace, a thread of connection so faint that it's basically theoretical. But it exists. Rodney, Shepard said carefully, recognizing that tone in McKay's voice. What are you saying? I'm saying I might be able to open a portal. Use that quantum thread as a guide, amplify it with ZPM power, and tear a controlled opening between realities. We could go home. He paused, and the silence stretched. But it would require all remaining ZPM power. Every joule. We'd have one chance, one jump for Atlantis and everyone aboard, and if it doesn't work, we'd be stranded here with no shields, no weapons, no power. Completely vulnerable. The implications crashed over the room like a wave. How certain are you this would work? We're asked. 67% probability of success. Maybe 70% if I can refine the calculations. McKay looked directly at Shepard. I've been running simulations for 3 weeks. This is real, John. We could actually get home. Or we could die trying, Keller pointed out. 67% success means 33% catastrophic failure. Those are terrible odds when we're talking about 300 lives. They're better odds than we had against the Wraith superhive, McKay shot back. Better than when we were infected with the Hoffen plague. Better than. We know, Rodney. Shepard held up his hand. The question isn't whether the odds are acceptable. It's whether we're ready to make that choice. Because once we commit ZPM power to opening a portal, there's no going back. We're all in. We came here to explore, Taylor said softly. To learn, to discover, to understand. We never intended to become combatants in someone else's war. If there is a way home, should we not take it? Even if it means abandoning people who might need us? Keller challenged. We've already helped hundreds of refugees. We have knowledge of the Sith threat that the Jedi don't fully understand. We could make a difference here. That's not our job, Ronan said bluntly. Our job is surviving. Getting home. Protecting our own people. This galaxy has been at war for how long? Thousands of years. We can't fix that. The Clone Wars have only been active for 3 years, we're corrected. But the underlying tensions are indeed ancient. Still, Ronan has a point. We're 300 people. We cannot solve galactic-scale conflicts. McKay pulled up another display, this one showing Atlantis's resource curves. Look at this objectively. At current drone expenditure rate, we'll be defenseless in 11 months. ZPM power is depleting faster than expected because of dimensional incompatibility, we'll lose shields in maybe 18 months. We can't manufacture replacements for critical systems because the materials don't exist in this galaxy. Every day we stay here, we get weaker. Eventually, someone will come with enough force to overwhelm us, and then 300 people die for nothing. Or we stay, ally with the Republic, and use their resources to maintain our systems, Lorne suggested. If they have access to our technology, they might be able to help us manufacture components. While also studying everything we have and eventually not needing us anymore, Zelenka added quietly. Once they understand ancient principles, we become obsolete. Potentially threatening obsolete. Shepard stood, moving to the conference room's window overlooking the city. Atlantis spread beneath him in elegant spirals of architecture that predated human civilization by millennia. She'd protected them, housed them, been their fortress against every threat the Pegasus Galaxy had thrown at them. Now she might be their ticket home. At the cost of everything she was. If we do this, he said slowly, if we use the ZPMs to open a portal, what happens to Atlantis? After we jump? McKay hesitated. The portal would destabilize as soon as we passed through. Without power to maintain it, Atlantis would be adrift. In the dimensional space between realities. She might survive, might not. But we couldn't come back for her. She'd be lost. You're talking about abandoning her, Weir said, and there was grief in her voice. Atlantis wasn't just a city to any of them, she was a living presence, the last legacy of an ancient civilization, humanity's greatest archaeological treasure. I'm talking about saving 300 lives, McKay replied, but his voice cracked slightly. I don't like it either. But what's the alternative? We stay here until we're too weak to defend ourselves, then die when someone finally brings enough firepower to crack our shields. We could make a difference, Keller insisted. The Republic, the Jedi, they're fighting against authoritarianism and oppression. That's worth something. Is it? Ronan challenged. We've met both sides. The Republic uses slave soldiers. The Separatists use corporate armies. Neither of them is clean. Neither of them deserves our sacrifice. Maybe no one deserves it, Taylor said quietly. But that does not mean it is not worth giving. The Athosians never asked for the Wraith's attention. No one deserved to die in their cullings. Yet we fought anyway, because some things are worth fighting for even when the cause is not perfect. The debate continued, circular and passionate and ultimately unresolvable through logic alone. This was a question of values, of identity, of what it meant to be the Atlantis expedition. Finally, Shepard turned from the window. We're going to vote, he said. Everyone in this room gets one vote, equal weight. Stay and fight, or go home while we still can. Show of hands for staying. Slowly, hands rose. Keller, who'd argued for humanitarian responsibility. Weir, who saw their presence as an opportunity to influence galactic events for the better. 3 of the junior officers who believed the Republic's cause was just. 7 votes for staying. Hands for going home. More hands. McKay, seeing the math of their situation with cold clarity. Ronan, loyal to his own people above strangers. Zelenka, understanding that engineering realities outweighed moral idealism. Lorne and most of the military contingent, trained to prioritize mission survival. 11 votes for leaving. Shepard looked at Taylor. Her hand remained down, her expression conflicted. Taylor. I cannot choose, she said softly. Both paths are righteous. Both paths are dangerous. I abstain. Which left Shepard as the deciding vote. Everyone waited. The weight of 300 lives, 10,000 years of ancient legacy, and the future of an entire expedition rested on his shoulders. He thought of Earth, home, family, the Milky Way galaxy that had been humanity's cradle. He thought of the SGC, Colonel Carter and General O'Neill, the allies they'd left behind when they'd embarked on the greatest journey humanity had ever undertaken. He thought of the refugees they'd saved, the Republic soldiers who treated them with respect, the Jedi who tried to understand rather than attack. He thought of Palpatine's calculating eyes, Dooku's persuasive warnings, and the sense that beneath all the surface politics, something darker was moving. He thought of Atlantis herself, ancient, patient, powerful, and what it would mean to abandon her to the void between realities. We go home, he said finally. We didn't ask to be part of this galaxy's war. We tried to help where we could while maintaining neutrality. But staying means choosing sides, and I'm not willing to sacrifice our people for a conflict we don't fully understand. Rodney, start preparing the portal calculations. We jump as soon as you're ready. McKay nodded, relief and regret warring in his expression. 48 hours. That's how long I need to finalize everything. Then we have 48 hours to prepare. Shepard looked around the table. Get our people ready. Secure all critical data. And say your goodbyes to Atlantis. Because when we leave, we're never coming back. The next 2 days passed in a blur of activity. Expedition personnel packed essential equipment, backed up ancient databases, and prepared for a jump into the unknown. Messages were sent to Republic and Separatist contacts, explaining their departure and thanking those who'd helped them. Anakin Skywalker took the news with visible disappointment. I understand, Colonel. You have to do what's right for your people. I hoped we'd have more time. There's so much you could teach us about technology, about possibilities we haven't imagined. There's so much you could teach yourselves, Shepard replied. You don't need our technology. You need to fix your own problems, the corruption, the authoritarianism, the fact that you're using clones as soldiers. Those aren't engineering problems. They're moral ones. Maybe you're right. Anakin was quiet for a moment. Be safe, Colonel. And if you ever find a way back, we'll look you up. Try to keep the galaxy from falling apart before then. Count Dooku's response was more philosophical. An interesting choice, Colonel. You're walking away from influence and power to pursue an uncertain hope of return. Some would call that wisdom. Others would call it cowardice. I call it pragmatism, Shepard said. We're explorers, not warriors. This was never our fight. Every fight becomes ours eventually, Dooku replied cryptically. But perhaps you'll escape before that truth catches up to you. Farewell, Colonel Shepard. You are the most interesting element this war has produced. On the final night, Shepard walked Atlantis's corridors alone. He touched the ancient walls, feeling the city's systems humming beneath his fingers. Through the ATA gene connection, he could sense her, not consciousness exactly, but something close. Awareness. Presence. The accumulated spirit of 10,000 years watching and protecting. I'm sorry, he whispered to the empty corridors. You deserved better than this. Better than being abandoned between realities. But I can't sacrifice my people, and I can't stay here. I hope wherever you end up, you find someone worthy of you. The city's systems pulsed once, whether in acknowledgement or coincidence, he couldn't know. When the hour came, all 300 expedition members gathered in Atlantis's gate room. The Stargate stood inactive, it didn't connect to anything in this reality, but the room had become their symbolic heart, the place where journeys began. McKay stood at the ancient control console, his fingers dancing across interfaces that had taken him years to fully understand. Beside him, Zelenka double-checked calculations while muttering prayers in Czech. This is it, McKay announced, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd. I'm initiating the ZPM drain sequence. Once I start, there's no stopping. We'll have approximately 90 seconds between portal opening and critical power failure. Everyone needs to be ready to move. Will we feel anything? Someone asked. Probably. Dimensional transit isn't exactly comfortable. Think roller coaster meets psychedelic experience meets near-death phenomenon. But it should be survivable. McKay paused. Should be. Inspiring confidence as always, Rodney, Shepard said from his position near the control chair. He'd stay connected until the last possible moment, guiding Atlantis through the transition. Alright, people. This is what we've been working toward. We're going home. McKay's hands moved across the console. Ancient systems began routing all available power toward the dimensional matrix generators. The ZPMs, Those incredible power sources that had sustained the city for so long, began discharging at catastrophic rates, their stored energy channeling into a single, desperate purpose. Reality began to tear. It started as a shimmer in the air above the gate room, a distortion that bent light and made eyes water. Then it widened, a wound in the fabric of space-time that showed something beyond. Not darkness, but rather an absence of anything, the void between realities, the space where universes touched without meeting. Portal is stabilizing. Zelenka shouted over the rising hum of ancient technology pushed beyond designed limits. I'm reading quantum entanglement signature from our home reality. It's working. The portal expanded, becoming a swirling vortex of impossible colors. Through it, barely visible through the dimensional static, was something familiar. Stars. The right stars. They're stars. Home. Everyone through. Shepard ordered. Now. The expedition surged forward, 300 people running toward the portal in organized chaos. Families held hands. Scientists clutched data pads. Marines provided security even in Exodus. They disappeared into the vortex one by one, transitioning between realities in leaps of faith that would have been impossible without the ancient technology making it real. Shepard stayed at the control chair, feeling Atlantis around him. The city was dying, power draining, systems failing, the fundamental essence that made her alive flickering like a candle in a hurricane. Go, he told her silently. Let go. You've done enough. McKay was the last one waiting, standing at the portal's edge. John. Come on. I'm right behind you. McKay jumped through, disappearing into the dimensional transit. Ronan followed, then Tayla, her hand extended back toward Shepard in silent plea. Shepard disconnected from the control chair, feeling the neural interface sever with physical pain. He ran toward the portal, Atlantis' systems failing around him as the ZPMs exhausted their final reserves. He dove through the portal just as the power failed completely. The sensation was indescribable, being torn apart and reassembled simultaneously, existing in multiple realities at once, conscious of dimensions that human minds weren't designed to perceive. Colors that didn't exist, sounds that couldn't be heard, sensations that had no names. And then, silence. Shepard opened his eyes to find himself floating in space, surrounded by the scattered members of his expedition. They hung there in the black, wearing no suits, unprotected from vacuum, yet somehow breathing, somehow alive. Because they weren't in normal space. They were in the dimensional void, the space between realities where physics held only provisional authority. Is everyone here? Shepard managed to call out, his voice carrying through the void despite the lack of medium. Sound off. One by one, expedition members confirmed their presence. 300 voices, some frightened, some awed, all alive. Where's Atlantis? McKay asked, spinning in the void, searching. They found her drifting perhaps a kilometer away, the city of the ancients, dark and lifeless, her elegant spires reaching toward nothing. No lights burned in her corridors. No power hummed through her systems. She was a ghost ship, preserved but dead, floating in the space between worlds. She didn't make it through, Zelenka said softly. She made it, Shepard corrected. She's just, sleeping. Maybe someday, someone will find her. Someone with the knowledge to wake her up. But it won't be us. Look. Tayla pointed, and they all turned to see it, a second portal, forming in the void. This one was different, stable, anchored to reality by the quantum thread that McKay had theorized. Through it, they could see the Pegasus Galaxy. Home. Everyone through, Shepard ordered one final time. This is it. The expedition moved toward home, leaving behind a galaxy at war, a city suspended between realities, and 3 months of experiences that would haunt and inspire them for the rest of their lives. Shepard was the last to leave, as always. He turned back once, looking at Atlantis drifting in the void, ancient, beautiful, abandoned. "Thank you," he whispered. Then he stepped through the portal and back into his own reality. The portal collapsed behind him with a flash of light that nobody in any universe saw. And Atlantis was alone. In the Star Wars galaxy, the departure of the mysterious city ship became legend. Some said they'd been destroyed by secret weapons. Others claimed they'd ascended to a higher plane of existence. The Jedi sensed a great disturbance in the Force, then, nothing. As if an entire city and its inhabitants had simply ceased to exist. The Clone Wars continued. Palpatine's plans proceeded. The Republic marched toward Empire, and the Jedi toward extinction, exactly as designed. But in the records of both Republic and Separatist intelligence services, in the private journals of Jedi Masters, and in the calculations of one very frustrated Sith Lord, the Atlantis expedition remained an asterisk, a variable that had almost changed everything, then vanished before its full impact could be measured. In the Pegasus Galaxy, a puddle jumper carrying 300 exhausted, traumatized, relieved people limped back to the SGC through the Stargate, carrying impossible stories about cities from legend and galaxies at war. And in the void between realities, Atlantis waited. Perhaps forever. Perhaps until the universe ended. Or perhaps until some future civilization discovered her and wondered at the city that existed nowhere and everywhere simultaneously, a testament to the ancients' genius, and to the humans who'd loved her enough to let her go. The Atlantis expedition returned home changed. Their report to Stargate Command about an alternate reality where technology and mysticism intertwined, where Force-sensitive beings commanded armies, and where they'd nearly been drawn into a galactic civil war read like science fiction even by SGC standards. But the data was undeniable. The quantum signatures were real. The experience had happened. Dr. McKay spent years trying to recreate the dimensional breach, hoping to recover Atlantis from the void. He never succeeded, though his research advanced human understanding of quantum mechanics by decades. Some nights, he swore he could still feel her, the city's presence, waiting patiently in the space between worlds. Colonel Shepard returned to the field, but something had changed. He'd learned that sometimes the right choice was walking away, that heroism didn't always mean fighting. The man who'd once defined himself by never giving up had discovered that knowing when to let go was its own form of courage. Tayla and Ronan integrated into Earth society as best they could, though they never stopped missing their home. They'd traveled between galaxies, between universes, and discovered that the constants, loyalty, compassion, sacrifice, transcended all boundaries. As for the Star Wars galaxy, the Clone Wars reached their inevitable conclusion. Order 66 was executed. The Jedi fell. The Empire rose. And somewhere in the classified archives of both extinct Republic and Ascendant Empire, records remained of the ghost city that had appeared for 3 months, saved hundreds of lives, demonstrated impossible power, and vanished as mysteriously as it had arrived. Whether Atlantis would ever be recovered, whether the dimensional breach could ever be safely reopened, whether some future generation would find the city drifting in the void, these questions remained unanswered. But the expedition had survived. They'd maintained their principles in the face of impossible pressure. They'd helped where they could without losing themselves to someone else's war. And they'd come home. In the end, perhaps that was enough. The city of the ancients still waits, suspended between realities, her systems silent but her structure intact. Waiting for someone with the wisdom to find her, the knowledge to wake her, and the courage to carry her legacy forward. Waiting, as the ancients had always waited, for those who would prove themselves worthy.